Okay, we're going to call the meeting to order. Do we have any announcements? Okay.
Sorry, Madam Chair. I guess I should have just mentioned just a reminder about the 22nd is a workshop with City Council, and it's pretty long. It goes from 5:30 to 9:30. Get a so and distracting. There we go. Civic Center is where we'll be meeting, so just across the parking lot. Should be good.
All right. Are they going to stop the echoing? Hello? Yeah, it's going to be hard to keep hearing myself over and over again. Okay, the minutes. Yeah, that's awesome.
Madam.
Okay,
Yes. Okay, sorry.
right, so Ron made the motion and Steve second to approve the minutes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the minutes are approved.
Was in there.
Oh, God. Report on council actions.
That happened on the 5th of April. I didn't see Haverfield online. The final plats were approved. Ballard Apartments, Gateway Industrial Park, the Blackview Business Park, number 3. Those were all approved. As far as public hearings, the first one was annexation and zoning to for the proposed vacated right on Happy Valley Road, totaling 3 acres. This for the station Gateway number 2, station at Gateway number apartments. That was approved. And they also, that was the annexation and vacation about that. And they required a top on them. The developer already proposed, so no real change there. Okay, then next one was annexation and zoning 6 for the Chase subdivision. And that one continued to the May 17th meeting. City Council had a lot of concerns about the lack of enough open space and a centralized location.
Madam Chair, This is Commissioner Kirkman. I don't know if you can hear me, but there is no sound coming from the chambers.
Jeff, can you hear us?
Yeah, I could hear that, but it sounds like you're standing in the Grand Canyon.
It's echoing again.
On the bottom in the middle. And underneath the LG. GBR.
Oh, somebody's running that one.
Is it here in here?
Are we good now?
Oh,
Nope, still echoes.
Wow. Good. Are we going with the echo or plan? Okay, we're going to proceed and just try and do our best with this echo. Parker,
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. The action requested for this evening is the approval or denial of the Summit Ridge Number 5 subdivision located west of South Midland Boulevard, west of South Midland and south of Greenhurst Road. It is located inside city limits and is zoned RS6. It is bordered on the north, east, and west by RS6 zone properties and Canyon County zone property to the south. In February of 2018, the property was annexed and the preliminary plat was approved. Subsequently, phases 1 through 4 were approved in the following months. Its development of 70 buildable lots and 3 common lots. That's a correction from what was in the notice, which stated 69. It is actually 70. Mic cut out. and 3 common lots. The proposed density is 3.43 dwelling units an acre. The findings of fact in this case are that it is located within the city limits and is zoned RS6. It conforms to the approved preliminary plat layout. It conforms to the applicable subdivision and zoning standards for NAMPA. Staff feels it is appropriate for the commission to recommend approval of the final plat for Stone Ridge number 5 to city council. The condition.
You guys want to do?
Madam Chair, I'll make the motion. The subdivision final plat for 5 for M3 Companies, Mark Idaho Research LLC with conditions.
I'll second.
Okay, that was motion by Ron and second by Adam. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Action item number 2. Mr. Ashby.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The action before you is for a final plat approval or denial for Lakidio Village number 1 subdivision for Isaac Josephek, representing Encore Lakidio Village LLC, the owner. This is a 10.66 acre piece of land addressed at 17390 North Canada Road. So it is currently zoned RS7. There was some confusion in the displays in the staff report because our maps haven't been updated since the county got the rezone to RS7 from RS8.5. So just to clarify, that is RS7 zoning. To the north is county ag. To the south is county ag. To the east is RS8.5. In December of 2005, the annexation and zoning ordinance took place and a preliminary plat at that time. December of 2018, there was a development agreement modification, a rezone to the RS7. November 2000. How about now? You know? Okay. So November 2020. It was rezoned from RS 8.5 to RS7, and then the preliminary plat for Village for 195 single-family detached 7 common lots. We've gone through a few iterations of this, different sizes of lots, different zones, and so that last one, November 2020, was the last one we had that is current. Again, 10.6 acres. See the buildable lots here. This phase of the Lakidio Village subdivision for 26 single-family dwelling units and 6 common lots. In your packet is the preliminary plat showing all the different open space for the entire subdivision. This is just one portion of that, and so some of the rest of that subdivision will come in different phases and include the rest of that open space. So it is within city limits. It conforms to the approved preliminary plat for the Kedio Village subdivision, and it conforms to applicable subdivision and zoning standards as outlined in your packet. I have placed before you two potential motions, one to approve and one to deny. Would stand for questions.
Any questions for staff? It's going to be a long night if we sit like this.
Chair, I'll make the motion to recommend approval of PO 1 final plat for 26 single-family detached lots and lots in RS7 zoning district, 10.66 acre for Isaac and all conditions.
Okay, it's been seconded by Adam and Steve. All those in favor? Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? Do we have Jeff and Michelle on?
I'm here.
Christie? I heard her earlier, but I haven't heard her on the last two, so that's why I wondered if we lost them and all this.
Yeah, it looks like Jeff's trying to talk, but I can't hear him.
Sign language, Jeff. All right. So now I'm going to start with public hearings. Action item number 1 is annexation zoning to RS6. The applicant is Patrick Connor, representing here. Come on up. What's your name and address for the record? That's what you want to do.
The zone for this parcel, the RS6 zone. And as you can see in the greater area, this is the dominant zoning district for this particular area, and it's the same zone as Sunnyvale subdivision. This is again a map of the area, schools and the fire department. The elementary, middle, and high school are relatively close, and then the fire station is just down the street. This shows the adjacency of proposed Sunnyvale West, adjacent to the Sunnyvale subdivision, currently under construction. The Sunnyvale subdivision you see was Initially, a preliminary plat was approved probably over 10 years ago, and then we had
Madam Chair, I'm sorry, we've got no volume for those who are online, public who showed up. So I don't think we should proceed unless we can get the volume working.
Agreed.
On the presentation, we need to give the public all the information being presented.
Nobody move. Just keep doing what you're doing. Nobody move.
All right, we'll just start all over from ground zero.
Sounds good. The second time is always better than the first time.
We're requesting an RS6 zone and a preliminary there, and then about 6 acres of public. Are the two builders that have committed to this. This provides lower energy costs and just high quality of construction. It's third-party rated. It's something that we're really proud of and we think is really important. Here's a couple shots of our design center located in Meridian. And then this is our Parade of Homes home in Star, just some shots of the outside and the interior. So that concludes the presentation. Thank you for hearing me tonight, and I hope you consider application for annexation, zoning, and preliminary plat. With that, I stand for questions.
We'll probably have questions for you after we hear from staff. And
Great, thank you.
thank you.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. Christy Watkins, Principal Planner for the City of Nampa. The request before you this evening is recommendation of approval or denial of the annexation and zoning to RS6 and the approval or denial of the Sunnyvale West preliminary plat. All of these are located on Flamingo Avenue to the west of Middleton Road and to the west of the existing Sunnyvale subdivision. The property is currently under jurisdiction of Canyon County, but it is within the impact area. The surrounding zones are RS6 on the east, which is the Sunnyvale subdivision, and then Ag, which is Canyon County all the way around, and then Nampa Christian High School, which is zoned RS6 PUD, that is just a little ways away from there on the west. It is surrounded by single-family residential land uses and agriculture. Utility and emergency services can be made available to the property. There is city water, sewer, and pressurized irrigation that has adequate capacity to serve this property. 8-inch gravity sewer in Amarone Street, which is part of the Sunnyvale development, 12-inch water in Flamingo, 12-inch water in Amarone, and 12-inch pressurized irrigation in Amarone. So it's all very nearby. So the applicable regulations to be considered for annexation, which would be the conclusions of law that you will need to meet to approve or deny this project, are that the project needs to be eligible for annexation as it must be adjacent to the Nampa city limits. It can be reasonably assumed to be available for orderly development, and the proposed zoning must match the adopted comprehensive plan. The applicable regulations for determining whether or not zoning meets the conclusions of law. To be eligible for the RS6 zoning, it must match the medium density residential land use that's designated in the comp plan. It should show that it is compatible with the surrounding zoning and land uses, and that it would not create a spot zone, and that it may be within the public interest. So staff analysis for this project, the proposed site development suggests that RS6 zoning would be an acceptable fit in the area, given that it already exists to the east and a short distance to the west. The future land use designation is actually community mixed use. However, our comprehensive plan does allow for a stretch to go one parcel deep. That stretch would be the medium density residential designation that is to the south. So in the medium density residential designation, it designates 2.5 to 8 units per acre. This project proposes 3.5 dwelling units per acre. According to the comp plan, this land use setting shall contain single-family detached homes, patio homes, townhomes, medium-density apartments, duplexes, and condominiums. According to Safe Routes to School, it is actually going to be in the Valley View School District, none of which are within walking distance. So they would go to Valley View High School, Valley View Middle School, and Lakeview Elementary School. According to Compass, they determined that the housing to job ratio shows that more jobs are needed in this area. The nearest police station is 3.9 miles away. The nearest fire station is 0.9 miles away. There is farmland that is being consumed by this development, but there is also 857 acres of farmland that exists within a mile of the project. The nearest bus stop is 1.6 miles away. The nearest school is 2.2 miles away, and the nearest park is 1.6 miles away. And the nearest grocery store is 1.8 miles away. The proposed development is slated for development in the RS6 zone, so it does have a standard building lot size that shall meet 6,000 square feet. However, it is allowed to have 20% infill lots, which would be 19 lots. They've only proposed 17 on the interior of the project. The smallest infill buildable lot is 5,500 square feet, and the smallest standard buildable lot is 6,032 square feet. So there is a total of 93 lots. This includes 16 common lots, 17 infill lots, and 76, that doesn't add up, does it? That's 93 buildable lots, excuse me. The entire count includes 16 common lots, 17 infill lots, and 76 standard-sized buildable lots. So when you take 20% of the largest and 20% of the smallest, your average lot size is 8,035 square feet. So due to the location of this project next to developed subdivision, the undeveloped or platted county properties, there is no compatibility requirements on the exterior lots. There is a right-of-way dedication of approximately 40 feet from the section line of West Flamingo required by the engineering department. The landscape plan was submitted and approved by the city forester. And then as the applicant indicated, they are working to provide even more open space than is currently being shown. So we did receive public input from the building department, from GIS for a couple of street names, and from engineering with their standard comments and conditions. So the conditions of approval that are listed in your staff report reflect those comments. And this is your motion for recommendation to City Council for the annexation and zoning to RS6. And this is your motion for the action on the preliminary plat. I will stand for any questions.
Any questions for Christy? Do we have sign-up sheets in the back for people that are here?
Not for this one. Do we have anybody signed up on the spreadsheet?
Nobody signed up for number 1 on the spreadsheet.
Nope, that's it then.
Did you guys have any questions for the applicant? Then I would entertain a motion to close public hearing.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to close public hearing. All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, public hearing is closed. I'm still not hearing Jeff or Michelle, so I don't know if they're,
I did it.
okay.
I did as well.
Thank you. Okay. 2 things you guys got to decide on. They're on page 128 of your packet too, if you can't see the screen. Yeah.
Since it's going to be a long evening.
Talk-
Madam Chair,
Mike. Please.
that better? Madam Chair, I move to approve the annexation and zoning to RS6 zoning district for Sunnyvale West.
Recommend for approval, Mr. Kehoe?
Said what?
Would you recommend for approval?
Yes. Can I
thank
read
you.
that?
No.
He's reading it from the thing.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I had to change that.
2 demerits for you. Okay, let's see. I think I left off at Sunnyvale West subdivision at Flamingo Road and for 93 single-family residential buildable lots, 5 common storm drain and buffer zones, and 11 common open space lots for a gross density of 3.55 and a net density of 5.75. For Providence Properties LLC, Patrick Connor representing Paul Mercer. Right, Mercier? Good enough? Okay. With all the conditions of staff.
Second.
Okay, moved by Steve, seconded by Tom. All those in favor?
Aye.
Moving right along, I move to approve the preliminary plat for Sunnyvale West subdivision at West Flamingo Avenue, and for 93 single-family residential buildable lots, 5 common storm drain lots, and 11 common open space lots for a gross density of 3.5, net density 5.75 for Providence Properties LLC, Patrick Connor representing Paul Mercer, and with all conditions of staff.
Okay, motion by Steve, second by Tom. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, goes on to City Council. Thank you very much. Okay, public hearing item number 2, conditional use permit. Do we have the applicant here? Yes.
Way. Oh, there we go. In Meridian, Idaho 83642. I'm here tonight on behalf of Sterling Land Development to request your consideration and approval of our request for a development agreement modification, conditional use permit, and preliminary plat for Sterling Commons. And next slide. So our project is located at 905 South Middleton Road here in Nampa. It was annexed and zoned in 2005. And since then, it's remained undeveloped. So tonight we are requesting, next slide, please. So it was annexed and zoned for 2005 with a development agreement. And at the time, the project had contemplated 3 commercial buildings not to exceed 3 stories. And what we're requesting tonight is a DA modification to modify those requirements as well as the site plan. What I've provided on the screen for you this evening was the original site design for the project that contemplated an access off of Lake Lowell, as well as off of South Middleton Road, and I'll get into that in a little bit later. Also, it showed large commercial buildings, 2 U-shaped buildings on the site, as well as one on the southern boundary that was a strip building. These buildings were not to exceed 3 stories or 30 feet. And then in our southeast corner, or southwest corner, pardon me, there was a parking lot for those facilities. So next slide, please. So our project tonight that we're bringing before you, as I mentioned, is 53 single-family attached homes, so townhomes, in 3 to 5 unit building configurations. These are 2-story homes that are alley-loaded with shared access drives. We have 27 guest parking spaces also dispersed throughout the site, in addition to the parking that's required for each unit. We have a 25-foot landscape buffer along Lake Lowell Avenue, as well as along South Middleton Road. And these homes will front onto a landscape muse that is maintained by the HOA. So there will be a lot of common spaces throughout the project that are accessible to all of the residents, open, active, and passive green spaces for everyone to enjoy. Can you go back for a second, please? So in response, and we really appreciate working with staff on this, we made a last-minute change in response to comments that staff had made in concerns about the access onto Lake Lowell. As you saw in the previous application that's part of the site plan, that's part of the current development agreement, there was an access point off of Lake Lowell. There was some concern that the traffic conflicts with the intersection, as well as the Whistle property, the undeveloped parcel to the west, could create issues in the future. And so we worked with staff to revise that plan. And so what you see before you tonight is we eliminated the access off of Lake Lowell. This changed the configuration of our site plan, but we feel that it's a better plan in terms of safety as our primary concern. So now we take primary access off of South Middleton, and we have actually it's hard to see in this plan, but a hammerhead turnaround at the north end of the site to meet fire turnaround standards. Engineering has reviewed it, and they were okay with the plan. Actually, Caleb had suggested somewhat of this revision that we've fine-tuned. Also in this plan, along with the landscape buffers along Lake Lowell and South Middleton, we've provided for a large common area park for the community for this development in the southeast corner. This also helps to provide a buffer with the canal, and then also with the lower density residential on the kind of southwest side of the canal. Next slide, please. So the design considerations for this project, and we have some elevation renderings here from the site, but really we're looking to provide for sale townhomes that provide a low maintenance alternative for residents. This also provides for a diversity in housing stock that's not commonly seen, and just another opportunity for home ownership. So higher density, but it's getting folks into maybe something that they can afford to actually own. We also have, as I mentioned, shared access easements and common areas are designed to maximize the efficiency of the site while providing safe and usable open space for its residents. We feel that's really important, whether you're a single or empty nester or a family with young kids, being able to recreate and walk throughout the site or take your bicycle in a safe area is important to us and to this project. The connectivity of the open spaces allows for maximum safety, as I mentioned, and walkability throughout the whole project. So as you see on the slide at the top, that's a shot of what it would look like down the common mews that would be where folks would access their front doors, and their patios would front onto that. So there's some active and passive open space there. And the image on the bottom is actually the view of the park as you drive into the site. You're looking forward as you're heading west into the site, looking forward into that common open space that's usable for everyone, with some opportunities, benches and lawn areas for folks to use. Next slide, please. So additional considerations. We are aware that there was a project that had come before that was denied, and the neighbors were very concerned about that project. We held our neighborhood meeting. They voiced their concerns about the impacts that this project would have potentially on their properties. So our additional design considerations for this site layout really focused on a few different things, the surrounding conditions. This project sits actually 10 feet below the subdivision to our kind of southwest Carriage Hill subdivision. That was the bulk of the comments that we received were from those homeowners. We did have some folks say, this is a great project, we're looking forward to it, but we had some folks that had some concerns. So to address that, as I mentioned, not only do we have the canal as a buffer, that's a 80-foot easement, but we placed the park deliberately in that corner to try to provide some relief between the two densities. In addition to that, we oriented the buildings and placed the smaller three building units along adjacent to that side so that, again, to try to help transition the density from something that was a lower density out to our site. This site slopes from the southwest corner to the northeast, so there's actually 10 to 12 feet of fall through the site as you're heading northeast. And so we've tried to place the buildings in a way to help minimize any perceived effects. As I mentioned, the canal easement provides some additional buffer, and we've tried to orient the buildings to work well within the site, but then also well within the context of the other homes. What this diagram we felt would be important to provide is just a relationship to the buildings, the existing subdivisions. So as I mentioned, our project is our two-story townhomes, so very similar to most of the residential in the area. The lots that we've identified with the orange dots are all two-story homes in the Carriage Hill subdivision, so we're similar to those. There's a couple that have a lighter orange dot. Those are a modified two-story, I guess, a bonus room, so there's a bit of a two-story profile. And then there are some single-family homes. But really trying to illustrate we've tried to maximize the distance in terms of where we oriented our buildings and the distance from one building to another. So some of the neighbors' concerns, we understand there's two lots that actually fully are adjacent to our property boundary across the canal, and two that are half on our property boundary on that southwest corner. And then the rest actually either look through the Whistle property that's undeveloped, not part of this application, or through the residential parcel that's to the south of our project. And let's see. So with this project, and Chrissy, maybe if you could change back to the site plan itself. There we go. So in making some of these changes to improve the safety, there were a couple of other advantages that happened. We actually were able to increase the amount of usable open space for the development. We did actually increase a couple of lots as well. So we went from 50 to 53, but really trying to maximize the usability of the site, but then also making it a nice open space area. for the residents. Also, when we made that change, we actually increased the number of parking units that we could get on site. So seems a little counterintuitive, but the types of the buildings, modifying from a 4-unit building to a 5-unit building, the dimensions were different. So we actually gained parking, we gained open space, and we felt overall at the end of the day, it was increasing safety, number one, of course, but then also being able to increase the amount of open space for the residents. And so our total common open space is now at 26.6%. In this zone, there is actually not a requirement for open space, but we feel that this is a good use of the project, of the land throughout the project. And let's see. As I mentioned, the staff has been great to work with. We've really appreciated their feedback. We've reviewed the staff report. We're in agreement with their conditions of approval that they've recommended. And so, tonight we're here to request your approval. And with that, I will stand for any questions.
I have a question for you, if I may.
Sure.
First, I want to thank you for closing the access to Lake Lowell Avenue. It was very close to the corner, and that stop sign backs up quite a bit anyway, so that would have made it worse. So thank you for doing that. But what I want to ask you about is the Deer Flat Canal, where you're putting the open space. You said open space and you said park. Park to me connotates you're going to have something in there for like a tot lot, something the kids play on, picnic benches. Are you going to have those kind of amenities in there?
Right. Yes. So what we had shown was a shade structure with a picnic bench, contemplate a park area for the kids and amenities. It will be a park, not a city park, but obviously
Right.
for the community.
Right, yeah. But
Yep.
you're going to have probably a lot of beginning families right in your area.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep.
Madam Chair, this is Commissioner Kirkman. I have a question.
Go ahead.
I didn't catch the applicant's name at the beginning, but we've had a few of these development agreement modifications come before us, and I'm sure that's not going to be the end of them. But my question to you is the change in this particular development agreement that you're seeking, is it based on just economics and the change in the market and circumstances as far as housing, and was it just not viable for the commercial buildings?
Yes, actually, we've looked at, this property has been annexed and zoned for a number of years and has sat vacant. I can only assume it was due to market conditions. Obviously, as we're all aware, housing and affordability and availability and housing option type, throughout the valley, not only the city of Nampa, is very, very constrained right now.
Can I
And
make a
so,
comment to Jeff, because I live right near that area, and maybe I know something he doesn't know. But right across the street from this is a very large vacant area that's got a gymnasium now and some other building going in, a dentist's office. And it's been that way for 12 years, vacant. So if there was any call for commercial buildings, they would have been put in there a long time ago. So they're probably making a very good decision, taking the commercial buildings out and putting in something that's more usable for the public. Jeff, sorry.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I asked the question because we get a lot of comments from the public about, this was the agreement to begin with, how come we're changing it now? So I just wanted to make sure that that point was made and the reason why.
Did it change owners?
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
in the process, yes, yeah. And to your point, Commissioner Keough, there is commercial development just to our east, and we feel that bringing some density, some more residents to the area will help make that development actually more viable. And people will be able to walk across the street and get the services that were initially intended for that
A
area.
couple of candy stores to go with that dentist.
There you go, maybe an ice cream shop too.
Yeah.
Okay. We may have questions for you after public testimony.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, Christy, this is you too.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. This is Christy Watkins, Principal Planner for the City of Nampa. The requests before you this evening, there are three. So the first one is the recommendation of approval or denial of the development agreement modification, approval or denial of the conditional use permit for multifamily housing in the BN zone, and approval or denial of the preliminary plat for the Sterling Commons subdivision, all located at 905 South Middleton Road. This project in the development agreement proposes a change to the original concept from a commercial layout to a residential layout. There was a waiver indicated in the narrative that would decrease this or allow to decrease the size of the landscape buffer, but through the revision, they determined that that was not going to be necessary. So that has been removed from the request. So a little bit of history on this project. In December of 2005, it was annexed and zoned to BN with a development agreement. In November of 2016, there was a CUP for self-storage approved. That has since expired. And in June of 2019, there was another development agreement modification and CUP for self-storage, which was denied. And then we had a pre-application meeting with this applicant in October of 2020 regarding these single-family attached units. The property is currently in the city limits and is zoned BN, which is the Neighborhood Business District. It is surrounded by BC and on the north and the east, Canyon County enclaved properties on the south, and Carriage Hill subdivision in an RS 8.5 zone on the west. Utility and emergency services can be made available to the property. Water, sewer, and pressurized irrigation have adequate capacity. There's an 8-inch sewer line in Lake Lowell. There's a 12-inch water main in Lake Lowell and Middleton Road, and a 12-inch pressurized irrigation in Middleton Road. So the applicable regulations for the development agreement modification, there aren't really any criteria that you're held to by law. This is strictly a contract between the city and the developer based on what they've presented and any conditions that you may want to take forward to City Council for approval. It is a subjective decision for council to make. So the applicable regulations for the conditional use permit that you need to base your decision on, will the development be compatible with and not adversely affect the livability or appropriate development of the abutting properties and the surrounding neighborhood is number one. Number two, will the proposed development provide a convenient and functional living, working, shopping, or civic environment and be as attractive as the nature of the use and its location and setting warrants? And number three, will the proposed development enhance the successful operation of the surrounding area in its basic community function? And then the regulations to determine the validity of the preliminary plat. You would base the code requirements on Chapter 14 for the BN neighborhood zone and on Chapter 27, the subdivision codes. So in the development agreement, this is kind of a side-by-side. That's a much more basic layout than what she showed earlier, but it gives you an idea the change between the old site and the new site. We will require that they bring us a newly drafted development agreement document, that they replace the conditions of approval and site plan details in that new development agreement that apply to this single-family attached unit development, and that they will provide a new legal description for the portion to be modified. So according to Chapter 3 of Nampa City Code, it states that single-family attached multi-unit zero lot line structures require a conditional use permit in the BN zone. In the BN zone, there's no required lot size or density, and the concept appears to comply with the parking, landscaping, and desire of council for open space and additional visitor parking that they were willing to volunteer to give us. We don't have any parking codes that require visitor parking, but they did provide some in there so that we don't have future parking issues in that location. The land uses in the nearby area are single-family residential to the west and commercial to the north and east. The development proposes 53 single-family attached units on 4.82 acres. The future land use designation is commercial. The BN zoning district allows for single-family attached multi-unit zero lot lines with the conditional use permit. There is community mixed use to the east and medium-density residential to the west. So if you were to stretch either one of those in either direction, your densities kind of conform to those stretches. The density proposed for Sterling Commons is 11 lots per acre. The high-density residential designation indicates a desire for 8 to 12 dwelling units per acre, but this is a commercially designated property which does not have a density requirement. So the City of Nampa has determined that it is within the public interest to provide a variety of single-family residential infill development opportunities. There are expressions of that policy in the comp plan. The Safe Routes to School analysis for this states that Nampa High School is 1.7 miles away, which is not within walking distance. Lone Star Middle School is 0.75 miles away, which is within walking distance. Waihi Elementary School is 0.53 miles away, which is within walking distance, but they would have to cross Middleton Road to do that. So the preliminary plat, based on the revised plat that they are going to be submitting, not this layout, but the one that she showed you, because I haven't received the preliminary plat from them yet, will provide for 53 buildable townhome lots and 10 common lots on 4.82 acres. They shall not exceed 3 stories based on the BN zone, but I believe that she has indicated that that would not be the case anyway. There are no requirements for a minimum lot size. The landscape plan will need to be revised to provide better visibility at the intersection of Middleton and Lake Lowell and identify appropriate planting materials. A revised plan was submitted on April 7th that shows a 25-foot landscape buffer along Middleton and Lake Lowell. So that eliminates the request to City Council for the waiver. The applicant has stated that pathways and sidewalks throughout the site offer safe connectivity and walkability for its residents, while a continuous landscape palette provides an aesthetically pleasing and a cohesive community. All common areas and open spaces will be maintained by the Sterling Commons Homeowners Association to preserve a unified appearance. Nampa City Code 1022 dictates the number of parking spaces required. Single-family and multifamily residential shall provide 2 parking spaces per dwelling unit. This project is required to provide 106. In addition, they've proposed 27 guest parking spaces. So we did receive a little bit of public input on this one. Those folks are listed there at the top of the screen. Their concerns were about traffic, open space, density, building height, and the need for retail and restaurants in the area. We also received the standard comments and conditions from the building department, Nampa Meridian Irrigation, the Nampa Forester, Nampa Parks, Police, Fire, and Engineering. So with all of those comments provided, that made up our list of conditions of approval that are in your staff report and shown here on the screen. It's very difficult to read. With that, I will stand for any questions, and your motions are on the screen.
Christy, this is Jeff. I have a question.
Okay.
The preliminary plat, did you say that the Planning and Zoning Department has not yet received the new revised preliminary plat?
So Commissioner Kirkman, yeah, we haven't received the revised one yet because they were still working through the access issues off of Lake Lowell with the engineering department. So once they got that figured out, they hadn't had a chance yet to give us a revised plat.
So follow-up question to that, should we entertain a motion on that particular subject, on that preliminary plat, and just maybe table that until you actually do receive that and make sure that everything is kosher or good to go? Or are we good to go with the motion on the preliminary plat tonight?
So Commissioner Kirkman, I have not seen the final sized lots, but there are no lot requirements for the BN zone, minimum lot sizes. So the layout and whatever conditions that are imposed for this development, this multifamily development by you or by engineering, will be appropriate to cover any concerns that you may have.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
Welcome.
Any other questions? Did we have anybody sign up here to speak? I have 2 people on the list here. Did we have sign-up sheets back there?
If they came in and wanted to sign up, we signed them up on that spreadsheet.
Oh, because I got this spreadsheet sent to me like 3:30 this afternoon.
Just a link.
No, I saved it to my iPad, so.
We have 2
I have
people
2. Okay.
signed up, Swanson, or Palmer and Swanson. Yep,
So
that's all
Dennis
we have.
and Sharon Palmer are opposed. Are they here to testify? Okay. And then Rob Swanson says has concerns. Rob here? Okay. What about online?
Not seeing those names online.
Okay. Is there anybody here that would like to testify on this matter? Come up and give your name and address for the record.
Hello, I'm Cheryl Higley, and I'm at 12441 South Abbott Downing Way here in Nampa. And I have concerns too. I live nearby, and I can't tell on the plans where the parking is, other than maybe the guest spots. And so that would be something, I agree with the gentleman who I think is online. I think it'd be good to table it until you can see the final plat, or the preliminary plat, I guess. Because I know I've seen developments in Meridian where if the parking is supposed to be their garage, I don't know, I really can't tell from the design. I've seen where there's parking spilling out into the narrow driveways and so forth. And I'm new here, but I have a concern that in the commercial, the B-in zone, I think Christy said it was, that there are no minimum lot sizes. Maybe that should be something that should be addressed, that if it is turned into residential, that there needs to be, instead of packing in as many as possible, especially in an area where the lot sizes are relatively large. And so, I mean, I know there's a need for affordable housing. I'm not opposed to that. But I think that you all are going to make a decision about what the community looks like. And having come from a community that burst in growth from 9,000 to 170,000, you're really going to determine that on how it looks.
Okay.
And so that's my concern, and I just want to express that.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Bonnie, do you want to come back up and address?
Thank you again, Chairman Selman, members of the commission. Christy, if you don't mind putting on the image that you did the side-by-side comparison from the previous plan, the one in your staff report. First, I'll follow up with the question. In the staff report, and part of the conditions of approval, it was a comment that Caleb had made from engineering, and in our effort to try to address that access issue and illustrate that, that was one of the conditions of approval, that before we go to City Council, that we submit the revised plat that matches this concept. So we just hadn't had a chance, but we were trying to be on top of things and address those concerns and really demonstrate that we're making an effort to take staff's concerns and the neighbors' concerns seriously and get those issues resolved. In the plan that you see on the screen on the right-hand side, so we've got a common service drive. It'll be a private drive in Caleb's comments regarding our plat, he identifies that certain dimensions, there will either be striped no parking on one side or both sides, depending on the width. So we'll comply with what engineering requires out of that. I believe we have enough room. Well, we don't even really need to park on either side because what you can see is, let's see, thank you, Christy. So those are all parking spaces there, perpendicular spaces. So each unit has, so some of the townhome units have a single car garage and some have a 2-car garage. And so if you have a single car garage, you'll have one dedicated space out in the parking stalls that Christie's indicating where those locations are. So we've got some along the southern border, some through there, and then some as you go up through there as well. So some will be dedicated for each unit if they only have a single car garage, and the others will be dedicated as guest parking spaces and identified that way. Let's see. And then in terms of the lot size, so actually in the BN zone, as you heard, this is a conditionally permitted use. There's a number of uses that are permitted in the BN zone, one of them actually being condos. We wanted to do a development that actually provided an opportunity for home ownership, but not in a condo situation where you might have somebody above or below you. You actually own vertically, up from the ground up to the air. And so that is why we chose to go with this development. I actually live in a community myself, a home that I own that has common areas like this and common drives. It's very great. We have a wide variety of folks, everyone from singles to newlyweds, small families, empty nesters. This provides a low maintenance living opportunity for folks and an opportunity for home ownership. So it's different than a lot of projects that we see, but I know from personal experience, they live and function very well. So I think that was all of the questions or concerns.
Does anybody have any questions?
I do. Maybe I didn't hear you if you said it. How many parking spaces are there?
So there's, in addition to the 106 that are required, so some of those are surface spaces.
6 so far, then you have some other ones someplace else?
We have 27, so 106 includes either in the garage, so if,
How about ADA spots?
those will comply with the ratio. I've got a,
As long as
Yeah.
you're up on that. All right,
Yep.
that's good enough. Thank you.
okay. So yeah, there's 27 additional guest parking spaces throughout the site.
Commissioner Kehoe?
Yes.
This is a single-family project, so ADA is not required.
Really?
Yeah.
Isn't there some duplexes in there?
No, they're all single-family attached, so they're considered with the lot line down the common wall. So that's considered single-family, so they're not required to have the ADA parking spaces.
We do, for the record, have a couple of spots where the spacing is enough to provide for a little bit more width. All right.
Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
I would entertain a motion to close public hearing.
Second.
Who made the motion, Brett? Brett made the motion, Ron seconded to close public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, public hearing is closed. You guys got 3 things.
Madam Chair, this is Jeff.
Yes, sir.
I don't hear anyone else talking, so I'm gonna jump in here.
You
I think
had
this
the
is
questions
a good
before,
pro-
Jeff.
What's that?
That you had those questions before. It sounded like you were ready to go.
So I think this is a great project, and I appreciate the developers' concern for mitigating some of those issues with the proximity to the neighbors and putting those smaller buildings closer to the homes there. And I think this is going to fit well in this location. So if there's no further questions or if there's no further comments, I'm going to make a motion that we recommend approval to City Council. This first one, the development agreement modification request to modify the concept plan of this project from 3 commercial buildings and associated parking to a concept plan for single-family townhome residential for a Sterling Commons subdivision located at 0 and 905 South Middleton Road for Bonnie Layton, who's representing Sterling Land Development Incorporated, with all the conditions listed in the staff report.
Second.
Is that right? Karen can't always tell who's answering, so. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No one opposed? I can't hear if that was.
No one opposed.
Okay, so I'll just move right along then to the conditional use permit. And I move that we approve the conditional use permit for this single-family attached 3 to 4 units, the 0 lot line for Sterling Commons subdivision in a BN, which is a neighborhood business zoning district for 50, is it 50 or 53? 53 buildable townhome lots and 10 common lots, if I'm not mistaken, at 905 South Middleton Road for Bonnie Layton, who's representing Sterling Land Development Incorporated, with all the conditions listed in our staff report.
They're 5-unit buildings, not 3 to 4 unit buildings.
Oh, my apologies. So 5, so correct that in the motion. 5 unit. I'm sorry?
Oh, 3 to 5 unit buildings.
3 to 5 rather than 3 to 4. So 3 to
Correct.
5 units. Okay. Rest of the motion stands.
Yes. Do we have a second?
A second.
Okay, Adam, thank you. It's been moved and seconded to approve the conditional use permit. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. One more.
One more, okay, the preliminary plat. So I move that we approve the preliminary plat for Sterling Commons subdivision for 53 buildable townhome lots and 10 common lots on 4.82 acres for Bonnie Layton, representing Sterling Land Development Incorporated, with all conditions in staff reports.
Second.
Okay.
Ron.
Thank you, Ron. Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the preliminary plat. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. All right. Goes on to city council. Okay, number 3. Taylor, are you here?
Good
Hi.
evening, Commissioners. My name is Heath Clark. I am at 251 East Front Street in Boise, and I am working with the applicant on this, SI Construction LLC. I think this is a great project in a great location, and it's a pretty straightforward application. And so I've just asked Parker to put the site plan up, and I'll speak to that here for just a second. So this is an infill project off of Birch Lane. We're proposing 33 residential units on just shy of 7 acres. The property is to be annexed is located in the medium density residential comprehensive plan designation that calls for a gross density between 2.51 and 8 dwelling units per acre, and this is smack dab in the middle at 4.9. The zoning proposed uses the city's RS4 zoning designation. Surrounding zoning is all residential already, and there are no waivers of standards or variances that are being proposed with the application. It is a true infill site. The property is very easily served by the city. The city's sewer, water, and pressurized irrigation systems are already at the property and all have capacity. I'd also point out that the property is located near employment centers, so it's in a good location. About 19% of the project is in open space, and we've proposed an internal community playground with a picnic shelter. Let me see if I can point to that just here. No, it doesn't show on the screen, does it? If you look at the internal island, the park area is on the east side there. With regard to the staff report, and you'll hear from Parker here in just a moment, we are in agreement with the terms and conditions that have been proposed. There's two items that I would note. One is that the engineering department, Caleb mentioned a suggestion that traffic calming measures may be warranted on Red Oak. So Red Oak being the north-south street. So one thing that we would like to look at with the engineering department is potentially a raised pedestrian crossing at the island that would allow folks to get from the west side to the east, and then it would also serve to add some traffic calming through there. And then the other item that I would point out, and I think Parker might mention this, is that we have the storm drain area on the far east that you can see. We're going to be working with staff, very similar to the comments you heard during the first application this morning about or this evening. It's been a long night, not that long, about raising that so that it absolutely qualifies under the functional open space category. So we would be using chambers and bringing that up. So it's more of a grassy park area than a storm retention basin. With that, I think I'll quit for a moment. I'll turn it over to staff and then be back for questions. Thanks.
Parker.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. Parker Bodley, Associate Planner. The requests before you this evening, there's two of them. The approval or denial of the annexation and zoning to RS4 of the property located at 7928 Birch Lane, located on Birch Lane east of Franklin Boulevard. The second would be the approval or denial of the subdivision for Sharp's Orchard. The property is currently outside of the city limits, but is contiguous on multiple sides. It is bordered on the north by Canyon County residential properties, RS6 and BN to the south, RS6 to the east, and RP and Canyon County residential to the west. Applicant's purpose is to zone the property RS4 to allow 33 buildable lots and 4 common lots. All utilities and emergency services are available. Nampa Fire Station number 3 is across the street to the south. Response time of 1 minute. There is adequate utility capacity to serve the property. The property is eligible for annexation since it is adjacent to Nampa city limits. The proposed zoning and development plan conforms to the guidelines set forth in the comprehensive plan. This is the conclusions of law required for annexation, that it be contiguous, that it be reasonably soon to be available for the orderly development, that it be consistent with the comp plan. Single-family residential land uses surround or lie near the property with some commercial uses nearby. The proposed RS district is intended for medium-density urban single-family residential and compatible uses. A stable and healthy environment together with the full range of urban services makes this an important land use district within the community. It is in the public interest to provide varying residential housing opportunities for citizens, and current real estate market is a pressing need for additional housing inventory. One of the major purposes of zoning is to promote orderly development, which preserves public health and safety. Site development will be regulated by the building permit review process in accordance with the RS zone regulations. The comprehensive plan designates the area as medium density residential, which calls for development of 2.5 to 8 units an acre. This project proposes 4.9 dwelling units per acre. A number of housing types are encouraged in this designation. Single-family detached residences are allowed and are the housing type that is being proposed. Nearby schools, Nampa High School is about 3.8 miles away. Lone Star Middle School is about 1.1 miles away, and Birch Elementary School is less than a mile away and within walking distance. Correspondence we received public input from the building department, fire department, and engineering with the standard comments and conditions. We also received comments from Pioneer Irrigation to provide information on development around the Grimes Drain, and Public Works requesting one more street light to be installed at the emergency access. We received information from the police department regarding the development, stating it would increase personnel by 0.15 officers and 0.05 support staff. The closest police station is 3.4 miles away. Reporting district receives 307 calls annually. The top call type for the area is for traffic stop. Regarding the plat, the preliminary plat proposes 33 buildable lots and 4 common lots on 6.68 acres. The property will take access from Birch Lane with an emergency access to the southeast. RS4 subdivisions have additional requirements in regard to open space while being exempt from others. There's no lot averaging and lot compatibility requirements for RS4 subdivisions. Open space is required at the rate of 500 square feet per lot for pathways and 700 square feet per lot in functional open space. The term functional means essentially not being used for any other purposes such as landscaping or streets. And then it needs to be distributed equally throughout the subdivision as determined by the Planning Commission. So all of the lots exceed 4,000 square feet, with the smallest being 4,394. Lot averaging doesn't apply, as I said before. Lot compatibility also does not apply. All the lots meet the required width and depth. Right-of-way dedication will be 40 feet from the center line of Birch. Landscape plan was submitted and approved by the city forester. The open space overall equals 1.27 acres, which is 19%. The requirement for functional open space in RS4 is 700 square feet per building lot, which equals 0.53 acres for this subdivision. So if you exclude the landscape buffer, emergency access, the ditch and drainage pond, the subdivision proposes 0.51 acres of functional open space. But if the drainage lot is able to be used as functional open space, which engineering has stated would be possible depending on the materials they used, the total space would be calculated at 0.71 acres. The only proposed pathway is the emergency access in the southeast corner of the subdivision. And here's a calculation of that. The conditions of approval are listed in the staff report, which we can go over if requested. It's standard conditions requested by various departments. And these are the potential motions for annexation and zoning as well as the preliminary plat. And I will stand for any questions.
Any questions for Parker? I have 4 names on my spreadsheet. Is that what, still correct? Christie? I have 4 names on my spreadsheet. Is that still correct? All right, the first person I have listed here is Beth Mamer. Mamer? Okay. Can you come up and talk into the microphone for us, please? So we can get you on the record. We'll have you give your name and address. And then you have 3 minutes to tell us what you want to tell us.
I'm Beth Mamer. I'm 16584 North Franklin Boulevard, Nampa. So I, at the west, touch the property. So the biggest, the only thing all of us were interested on that are touching the west side of the property is irrigation, and then because everything's a ditch system there, because it was farm ground. And then where the water would go to when we turn it off to irrigate, it goes down to the drain. And then the other thing we were considering is, and hopefully that was covered, were the property lines, because the original property lines are these fences that were built 60 and 70 years ago on there. So everything's fenced there. So anyway.
Okay, so you want to know about irrigation, and you want to know if the fences are on the property lines? Is that-
Right, and then the drain, and where it drains, when we run the water, when the water is turned on from the Phyllis Canal, because we get our water out of the Phyllis Canal, when it's turned on, it isn't turned off unless something's plugged. So it's turned on, and then each person, when they go to get their water, they turn it on, then they turn it back down the drain, and it goes down to Grimes Drain. So we just want to make sure that that's all taken care of.
Sure,
Because
okay.
there would be a problem if there isn't.
We will ask the applicant that.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Okay, and then I had Joanne Johnson Bowe. Okay. Okay, thank you, Joanne. Okay, James Urbick. Not online. Okay, and then Mark McFall.
Hi, my husband, Mark McFall, was unable to be here, but I'm Susan Kane, and I am also one of the adjacent landowners. I'm at 16660 North Franklin Boulevard. And Mark and I just wanted to go on record to say that we are working with Taylor at SI Construction to maintain that flow and use of irrigation water downstream for us and the other downstream users. We have passed along to Taylor the Pioneer Irrigation District requirements for maintaining the continuous flow of irrigation water. And we appreciate that Taylor has said that they plan to implement those requirements in order to be sure to maintain the use of that water for us downstream users. So thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you, Susan. Is there anybody else here that would like to speak?
So the next one is Beth Mamer.
She already spoke.
Already spoke. Oh, she's on here twice, sorry. Oh, they're both on here twice, so that's it.
Like I thought I got them all. Okay, can we get Heath back up here to talk about fences and drains or whatever you can address on that?
You bet. Again, for the record, Heath Clark, 251 East Front Street in Boise. So yeah, a couple items there. So just to confirm, before we get to the irrigation ditch, just to confirm Parker's comments, we are going to revamp the drainage area to make sure that that qualifies as functional. So that's a commitment we've made. We anticipate using chambers to make that work, and that will happen. On the irrigation ditch, is I'm sure you guys have heard week in, week out, we have an obligation under Idaho code to make sure that that access to that irrigation water remains. As you heard in the last speaker, Taylor with the applicant group has been working with Pioneer and has been in conversations with the neighbors to make sure that that happens in a way that's acceptable. The intent at this time is to leave the ditch along the western boundary as is, and it looks like the fence and the property line are pretty darn close, despite the fact of the time period that's gone by. But the intent, what we would like to do at this time is to place the fence on our side of the ditch to leave it open for them. And so if we need to work out easements or anything like that, then we will do that. But we are going to make sure that our western neighbors have access to that ditch. So with that, I would just wrap up by saying on the annexation front, this certainly fits your comp plan designation. It's orderly development. The services are all right there. And then on the pre-plat, as Parker mentioned, it's certainly within the standards. We're not asking for any waivers or exceptions. And so with that, I'm happy to answer any follow-up questions.
Anybody have any questions? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
the James Urbick had submitted a letter that was included in your staff report opposed due to traffic. I just wanted to make you aware of that.
thank you. Somebody want to make a motion to close public hearing?
So moved.
Ron moved, Brett second to close public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Motions are on page 262 of your packet and 263.
Madam Chair, I think this project's right down the fairway. It's a great infill project. Absolutely, developer knows all the issues out there and take care of the neighbors. And so, unless there's any more discussion, I'll go ahead and make the motion. Hearing none, move to recommend approval of the annexation and zoning to RS4 zoning district for Sharps Orchard subdivision at 7928 Birch Lane. 33 single-family residential buildable lots and 4 common lots for a gross density of 9, net density of 6.09, 6.68 acre site for Taylor Schmidt representing Dennis Sharp LLC with all conditions listed in the staff report. Second.
Okay. Motion by Ron, second by Brett. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Madam Chair, I'll make the motion that we approve the preliminary plat for Sharps Orchard subdivision at 7928 Birch Lane for 33 single-family residential buildable lots and 4 common lots for Taylor Schmidt representing Dennis Sharp LLC with all conditions. Staff.
Recommend approval.
Then a preliminary plat.
It's approved.
Well,
Decision.
so then that's wrong too. Okay.
Yeah, I'm ahead of them.
Okay, you said it right.
Second.
Okay, motion by Ron, second by Brett. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. All right, we're going to take 5-minute break before we start the next one because we may not get a break for a while. have the representative here. Go ahead.
Good evening, Madam Commissioner. Madam Chair and Commissioners, I'm Keith James with the Inland Group, 120 West Cataldo, Spokane, Washington. And very grateful with this current allergy outbreak that the echo has been repaired, because I wouldn't want to hear this back. Once is enough. I'll give you a quick presentation on what we're proposing. As I mentioned, I'm with the Inland Group. We're a Spokane, Washington-based developer, general contractor, and owner of multifamily housing. We build about half of what we do is affordable housing, and the other half is active adult communities. So we are in the business of housing people and making sure we house them in places that they can thrive. We've developed to own since about 2010. And I should note just on the first slide that you've got my contact information, phone number, and email address if you need. And otherwise, just important to note that we own for the long term. We develop, build, and own. We've got about 45 properties in 9 states and have only ever sold 2, and those were very unique circumstances. So we intend to be a neighbor for the long haul. Here in Idaho, just to note, we built our Affinity active adult community in Boise about a decade ago. We're currently finishing up Spencer Place, which is a similar affordable housing garden-style community, and we're also currently pursuing development in Caldwell. So a growing Idaho presence. You know, the next slide, or next couple of slides, please, Christy. You know, why are we here? Why at this site? Had a chance to talk with, you know, the neighbor who we're most impacting in this, and you know, the question is just why? Why are you doing this to me? Why are you doing this to us? And the answer is really simple. We are housing providers, and there's such an incredible, overwhelming need for housing in the marketplace, and especially affordable housing. In the market study that was completed a few months ago, there was nearly 3,800 households that qualify for this housing type, which is affordable at 60% of area median income. If we are approved and successfully build these 252 units, that will meet just 7% of the demand. And this is counting the households in the area. This isn't counting planned immigration or folks moving in. So really what that means is there are 3,800 households out there today who are rent burdened, who are paying more than they should be to reasonably maintain a lifestyle that most of us enjoy. Next slide, I'll give you a little context of where we are. Our site is highlighted there or outlined in white. Amity is to the south. South Grays Lane is to the east. And the North Nampa lateral runs along the north east section of the site. Yes, thank you. So a bit to the northeast is Columbia High School and Happy Valley, running north-south, and then of course the railroad overpass to the west there on Amity. On the next slide, oops, maybe one too far there. Oh, maybe I'm missing one, or maybe I changed my order. Nonetheless, I've got a, well, let's go to the site plan. That'll work, Christy. I'll walk you through our site plan and what we have proposed. It's a pretty standard garden-style apartment community development. The buildings are 3-story. They're typically 20 to 24 units each. In this case, there is one 12-unit building up in the northwest corner. What we have proposed is primary access off of Amity with a split drive. entering toward sort of a rounded parking area with the clubhouse. And most of the amenity spaces all sort of centrally located for sort of a park-like feel. There's a secondary access to South Grays Lane, which is just south of the single-family parcel to the north. It's worth noting our unit mix here includes several units for large families, including 3 bedrooms and even some 4-bedroom units. No requested variance for parking. That meets code at a little over 2. It's actually close to 2.1, I think, stalls per unit. Whereas this housing type would more typically be in the 1.8 or 1.9 stalls per unit. I think it's warranted here at this location without transit very available to park per code. Over 1 acre of the site as open space. Again, mostly in that common area, but a lot of green around the rest of the space, as you can see, and 38% of the site area landscaped. I think with the next slide, the main thing I want to hit on here in terms of what we're proposing, and I've read the staff report, met with one primary neighbor, and I know we're going to have opposition, and I understand that. And I don't take it lightly, and I don't dismiss it, but what I really try to do is mitigate to the best of our ability. And I think it comes down to eventually, whether it's this body or council, deciding, if the greater good of the community is worth it, and if we've done all we can reasonably to mitigate. And I think in this case specifically, there's a development agreement in place that allows commercial development. And the commercial development could be substantially more impactful than multifamily development. So that's a very interesting fact in that it's hard for me to neighbors to say with a straight face, what I'm doing, it could be worse. But the reality is it could, without a CUP approval, it could be worse. I want to, Christy, if you can go to the next slide, please. Just talk through our site plan a little bit more. Talk about some of what we've tried to do to not adversely affect the neighbors. We've talked about a solid fence along our west property boundary, which is next to the farm and event venue property to the west and to the north. Our buildings are set back. It's kind of hard to see, but if you look at the middle building, that's 90 feet. The west edge of that middle building, first of all, it's sited such that the narrow edge of the building is to the property, is to the neighbor, instead of the long edge of the building. And that's 90 feet away from the property. And then, of course, the property doesn't have any buildings in that area. Even in the northwest corner, where we've tucked a smaller building up in that corner, it's that's probably 100 plus feet from the venue building. So where possible, we've set it back, and even the building on the very north, or in the northeast corner, there's the Nampa lateral that separates us, and then there's the neighboring property before there's any backyards. So it's substantially set back from neighboring uses. I would otherwise mention, in terms of appropriate development and not adversely impacting neighbors, that a condition of approval will be following any traffic mitigation measures as detailed in the traffic impact study, and we're of course willing to follow those. Maybe we could go ahead a couple of additional slides. I don't want to spend too much more of your time other than to really just hit on, we take a great deal of pride in making sure we deliver a product that's indistinguishable. It's affordable, which means there are rent requirements and income requirements. But we want that to be indistinguishable from market rate apartments. And so we build a product that we feel you would never know the difference. So, you know, our amenities, this is sort of our traditional amenity package. And it's what we plan to do. And then finally, maybe just the last few slides of the presentation, it's a few images of other similar copper properties, a little bit of an older architectural design in some of these images, but you get a feel for the play area of the green spaces, of the pool and clubhouse. A slightly newer version of the product as you go toward the last slides. That product there in the north, or in the upper right corner, that's brand new in Auburn, Washington. So the landscape isn't in yet. Otherwise, I would have had a pulled back, wider angle photo with the common areas there. So that's all I have. I know I'm sure there will be plenty of questions, so I'll stand for those.
Okay. Thank you. All right, Christy.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. Christy Watkins, Principal Planner for the City of Nampa. The request before you tonight is the approval or denial of the conditional use permit for multifamily housing in a community business or BC zoning district for 252 dwelling units in the Copper Depot Apartments with a gross count of 20.06 dwelling units per acre. So some history on this property. In November of 2008, this property was annexed and zoned to BC with Ordinance 3913. And I do have a typo, I believe, in my staff report. The development agreement does not provide a list of uses that were permitted or not permitted for this commercial zone. The property is currently within the city limits and is zoned BC. It has Canyon County residential and RS18 to the north. Canyon County property to the south, which was the old meat processing plant. Canyon County to the east, which is a residential property. And Canyon County to the west, which is also a residential property. So services, utility and emergency services can be made available to the property. The fire department has noted that it is approximately 3.1 miles from Nampa Fire Station number 1 with a response time of 8 minutes. Sewer and water have adequate capacity here. There is sewer and PI. They're not readily available, and they will require some easements through other properties to the east and west. Or there is a significant stretch in Amity to accommodate the connection to this service. 12-inch water main in Amity Avenue and a 10-inch water main in Grays Lane. So if you choose to approve, you are required to find in accordance with these criteria in Chapter 25. So the applicant's request for the conditional use permit for multifamily in a BC zone is required by code in Chapter 3. The proposed multifamily dwelling development, location, size, and design should not adversely affect the livable or appropriate development of the abutting properties and surrounding neighborhood. That the location and design and site planning of the proposed multifamily apartments will provide a convenient and functional living, working, shopping, or civic environment and will be as attractive as the nature of the use and its location and setting warrants. And that the development is consistent with the appearance of the area and enhances the area in its basic community function. So the staff analysis for this project is that it is near an area of the city that is single-family residential. The future land use map is split between commercial and medium-density residential. Nampa has determined that it is within the public interest to provide a variety of housing types. The Safe Routes to School analysis shows that Columbia High School is 0.8 miles away. That is within walking distance. East Valley Middle School is 1.8 miles away. It is not within walking distance. And Park Ridge Elementary is 1.3 miles away, and it is not within walking distance. Compass did an analysis, and they show that the housing to job ratio indicates that more jobs are needed in the area. The nearest police station is 3.2 miles away. The nearest fire station is 2.4 miles away. No farmland is being consumed by this development. There are 471 acres of farmland within a mile of this project. Nearest bus stop is 2.3 miles away. The nearest school is 0.9 miles away. The nearest park is 0.9 miles away, and the nearest grocery store is 3 miles away. As far as lot coverage is concerned, they did indicate that the building area would be 22.7% of the property. The parking area would be 38.9% of the property, and the landscaping area would be 38.4% of the property. The amenities that they've shown on the concept plan are a tot lot, a sports court, and a clubhouse with a pool that is central to the development and has sidewalk connectivity throughout the site. So there was a significant amount of public input that was received that is included in your packet, and some was emailed to you yesterday. Those concerns included traffic, density, possible low-income housing, and crime, not to mention a few others. There were also comments in your packet from the building department, parks department, police department, fire, and engineering. I got an email today from Caleb Leclerc in our engineering department. He had some preliminary comments on the traffic impact study that he has been working with the applicant on. So he's got a couple points here. The only project triggered mitigation is to provide a left turn lane at the proposed Amity access. The Amity and Happy Valley roundabout was found to operate below standard level of service under the 2024 background conditions. All other intersections operate within a level of service threshold. The report compares traffic generation between the proposed multifamily project and the previously planned commercial development, and finds that multifamily project generates less traffic, particularly in the PM peak hours. So the suggested conditions of approval are listed in your staff report and are based on the comments that were received from the departments. This is your potential motion, and I will stand for any questions.
Any questions for Christy? A lot of names signed up here. Start in the order that I have. I have Matt Jamison. Is Matt Jamison here? He is listed that he's in favor. He submitted a letter. Alicia and Michael Godden. Not here. They're opposed, and they said they would like to speak. Are they online by chance? Greg and Lori West.
You're here.
Online. Awesome. Give us your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes or less.
Thank you. Greg West. My wife Lori is with me. 313 Drive, here in Napa, Buckskin. You've got the match just right off of Briggs Lane. I also submitted a letter. Primary concerns are the surrounding neighborhoods aren't set up for the higher density housing. The lots that we're in right here along Buckskin are all, I think it's R18, but all the lots are half acre or larger. I know there's one on Grays Lane, I believe is larger than that. And so it really doesn't kind of fit the need for the neighborhood, so to speak. Plus on the 3 stories, I mean, it's quite a bit higher than all these other homes that are around here that are going to be single story. So I'm afraid that those people that are really close to development are going to lose some of the privacy that people looking down on. Traffic has been a big concern. I know the development to the west of the farm ground there, I used to call that Amity Springs. I'm not sure what it is now. I testified during that traffic on Amity was woefully inadequate. And with this growth, it's just even proven itself. To make a left turn from Grace Lane on Amity during peak hours isn't possible. So believe people exiting this project will have to go down Grace Lane. And again, there's more traffic. Submitted a picture for my testimony of an accident on Grace Lane last year. I was supposed and everything like that. I was speeding, took out a sidewalk. A lot of people have walked on Grace Lane. So traffic speed on Grace Lane is increasing, traffic speed in Amity. I got passed today from a guy doing 60, upset at the fact that I was only doing 10 over. Just keep him off my rear end. That seems to be the real problem, you know. There is no sidewalks getting to school. I think in the staff report, there's sidewalk connectivity. I'd like to see that sidewalk connectivity. As I stated in Aberdeen Springs and shot photos on that, there's still people walking, there's running, there's kids on bikes. There's no sidewalks in Amity. There's no sidewalks on Grace Lane. That's approaching the project. Kings Road is not necessarily an alternative because that is backed up considerably. What I'm afraid this project is going to do is going to take Grace Lane and make it into a thoroughfare, which it wasn't designed to do. Where a few years ago, we felt fairly safe on walking it, and now it's getting very busy. I know they put speed signs up there, radar machines to check your speed. And this is all before Happy Valley.
Lost them. Okay, you got about 10 seconds left, Greg.
Okay, I was just gonna say, with about 250 people, you're gonna have a lot of cars on Grace Lane, and that's a lot of traffic. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next on my list is James and Melanie Martin.
Yes, we're here.
Okay, give us your address for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Okay, we live on 213 Buckskin Drive. And this proposed apartment complex, it just doesn't seem to fit in our area. It's right now, there's an apartment complex in the midst of construction on Kings and Victory, and it's 16 acres. So I don't understand why they need to build another apartment complex so close. And on the other side of Amity, I'm not exactly sure what's being proposed between Happy Valley and the meatpacking plant, but that's all being stripped and going to become something. The traffic here is just getting worse and worse and worse. And like the previous speaker said, you can't get out of Gray's Lane now without waiting for 5-10 minutes to even make a turn. I've seen 3 accidents at that intersection already because people get impatient. You can't get out, especially if it's in the morning or anytime after 3. The neighborhood is all single-family homes. It's a peaceful, quiet neighborhood. And I just don't like the idea of a big apartment complex going in there with, what, 252 more families? It doesn't make sense to me in a neighborhood that is all single-family, large lot homes. So I'd appreciate if you guys would vote to deny this.
It also affects what our homes are worth in a big way.
Yeah, property values don't seem to appreciate apartments nearby.
Great, thank you very much for your, or you have something else to say?
I was gonna say, this is an established neighborhood. It's been here a whole lot longer. And, you know, I kind of would hope that you would take in consideration the people who, you know, worked hard to get where they are here in this neighborhood and have properties that are of value, because this will definitely take the value down.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have Marco and Lara Roeto.
Madam Chair and Commissioners, my name is Lara Roeto. I live at 66 South Grays Lane. I oppose, based on Ordinance 1025-4, the apartments aren't compatible with our single-family home neighborhood. It's not compatible with the existing party venue next door and would negatively impact it, no matter what the developer tries to say. When you're turning onto Grays, as the gentleman just pointed out, it's a dangerous intersection. And I feel like exactly what he said, you're turning Grays into like an arterial road where Amity should be that, but we're just getting overrun with all of these developments along Grays, and it's just becoming crazy. So the harmful amount of traffic to our area, the rule of thumb is about, for apartments, about 4 to 6 daily trips per apartment. So we're looking at 1,008 to 1,500 daily trips in and out of that place. And that's not the peak average, that's just the daily average. So for him to say that 5 commercial, developments there would cause more traffic, I highly disagree on that. If the city report says that we need more businesses in our area, more jobs in our little neighborhood area, then put the commercial ones in there. Let's get some more jobs nearby. We don't need 252 apartments. Amity Road has not been widened. It's only 2 lanes, super small shoulder. CHS, Columbia High, 0.8 miles away, within walking distance. But guess what? They're walking down Amity. It is dangerous. These kids, there's no crosswalk. They're high schoolers, so they're on their phones or listening to headphones. I mean, it's not safe. I have also witnessed 2 accidents right at the Grays and Amity intersection in the last probably 2 or 3 months. And I validated that with the Nampa Police Department, that there's actually been 3 within recent months. So I'd also point out with the precedents that have already been set, as we've already fought duplexes on this road, as we've already in past years fought apartments just down the road on Amity's, and both were denied by you guys. So I would just appreciate that if you would listen to the local residents, whereas this developer, doesn't have kids that are driving these roads. He doesn't have kids walking up and down these roads. This is our neighborhood. We care about it. We care about the residents here, and we hope that you will oppose this conditional use permit. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, Mary Martin.
Oh, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, Mary Martin, 4100 East Boreal Court, Nampa. My position is opposed for the following reasons. The amount of traffic it will add to East Amity Avenue and South Grays Lane, as was already stated by previous speakers. Also, I have safety concerns regarding Amity and Grays, that intersection. It's seen an increase in traffic incidents lately. Also, the strain it will put on surrounding grocery stores and restaurants. Classroom capacity in nearby schools not being able to accommodate such high density housing. Another fear is that crime rates will increase with such high density affordable apartments. And lastly, that the aesthetic of the 3-story towering apartments will not fit in with the surrounding homes, and it will lower housing values. And that is all.
Thank you. Okay, next I have Todd and Stacia Christensen.
Hi, my name is Stacia Christiansen. I'm at 420 Buckskin Avenue. And thank you, council members. I am opposed to this proposal on the grounds of 1025-4 general use permit on the scale, bulk, coverage, and density. A 3-story will be looking right into my front yard. I have been in almost an accident. The traffic is atrocious on Amity and Grays. You cannot get across left or right during high traffic areas. I've almost been rear-ended turning into left onto Grays Lane from Amity. There are no sidewalks to accommodate all of these kids. And quite frankly, I have lived in a home where they put in affordable housing. My house was robbed twice. My car was broken into. And, you know, I just don't want that for this area. These are single usage homes, and it's a nice area and a quiet area. And I would appreciate you guys denying this conditional use permit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next name I have is Jill Sauter. Is Jill online? Jill in here. No, Jill? Okay. Well, she is opposed. And then I have a list of people who had written comments and they have not asked to speak. I'm going to read through this name. If you are here or online and hear your name and you want to testify, holler, raise your hand, something so that we don't overlook you. Okay, these are all opposed. Bob Moore Jr., Lisa Wilhite, Amanda Spurgeon, Angelica Kirk, Annette Scott, Brian Warwick. You would like to speak? Come on up.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, Brian Warwick, 403 Buckskin Drive, Nampa. Appreciate the opportunity to speak before you today. I think my neighbors have covered the traffic issues quite well. I think one thing I'd like to point out, I am a registered professional engineer in the state of Idaho, so I do have kind of an analytical mind. And I realize you can take daily averages of traffic and kind of work it one way or the other and make it look palatable. But if you were to be there at peak times and experience it for yourself, you would realize what a disaster this area of town is. Commissioner Kirkman in past hearings has actually testified to the disaster that it is. He travels through it on a daily basis. There are no sidewalks along Gray's Lane that are contiguous to get the kids to the high school. Gray's Lane is developed out, so there's no vehicle for the city to require property owners to add sidewalks. So it's up to the city to go back and add those sidewalks and take responsibility for what they've annexed in the past. But there is no contiguous sidewalks. You'd have to cross Gray's Lane 3 or 4 times to get to the high school if you chose that way. The other way is up Amity where their sidewalks are non-existent. I do support the commercial aspect, as Laura has pointed out. You know, I feel like it suggested possible uses of professional office space, a bank, a coffee shop, healthcare offices. You know, those have traffic during the day. It's kind of spread out. It typically isn't active at peak times, and it certainly isn't active on weekends and evenings. So I think it would be a much better fit for the neighborhood. And they also have little to no pedestrian traffic at those type of establishments. I also would reference the City Code 1025-4. This use violates a number of those issues. It would adversely affect the livability of the surrounding neighborhood. It does not match the surrounding neighborhood in harmony with scale, bulk, coverage, and density, and it would be harmful to the effect upon the desirable neighborhood character. I live in the large lots to the northwest of this, and my backyard would look at 3-story apartment buildings. They would look down into my backyard, and it would affect the livability of my backyard, significantly impact the sellability of my home. If I was to buy my home now and there were apartments back there, I would not consider it. And I think a lot of potential buyers would have the same reaction. There has been precedent set by the Planning and Zoning Commission with in October 2019, the Aberdeen Springs development on Amity originally started as 4plexes and duplexes and was reduced to single-family homes, as well as an additional one on Gray's Lane. So I did have one question for the developer, and that was whether they own the property or if they have an option to buy the property.
We'll ask that.
And I lived in an apartment when I was first married. I tried really hard to get out of the apartment for obvious reasons, and I don't want to live next to apartments again. That's why I picked a half-acre lot when I was able to purchase a home. I want my space. I don't want the crowding. Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna go back to reading names, and if you're wanting to speak, make sure and speak up. Caitlin Nance. Okay, Caitlin. You have to unmute yourself, Caitlin, if you want to talk.
Hey there, sorry, some technical difficulties. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, give us your address for the record.
Okay, so my address is 4101 East Indigo Court, Nampa. My name's Caitlin Nance. My concerns are just the same as everybody else's. Grays Lane is not a throwaway road, but if we put these apartments on it, it's definitely going to become one. The buildings will not match the neighborhood at all, and the parking lot is just, there's so much parking there, it's just going to look really bad. The walking to the high school, there is no way to get to the high school without getting onto a main road. And even then, there's no sidewalks on that main road to get to the high school. So I basically agree with everybody else and I oppose it. So,
All right, thank you very much.
thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna try. I apologize if I mispronounce anybody's names here. Cheyenne Reniger. Okay. Dustin and Debbie Potter. Jean Peters. Is that somebody wanting to speak? Did some? I've already passed him a long time ago. Mr. Moore, do you want to speak?
Yes, I do.
Okay, give us your address for the record. And you got,
411 Buckskin Drive.
okay,
I agree with everything that Brian Warwick said. He's my neighbor, and I live directly behind this project. Three-story apartment buildings just do not fit this neighborhood, nor does it work with the traffic impediments we have at this time, especially with the other developments going on the other side of Amity. I moved here to find my dream home, and this is what I found. And now they want to put three-story apartments behind me. It just doesn't work. And I oppose this, especially with the traffic and the size of the buildings. Small commercial buildings would be much more presentable, or single-family developments in my mind. Thank you.
thank you. Dustin and Debbie Potter, Jean Peters, John and Sarah Giray, Joanna Keith, Kevin and Nina Barton, Leslie Freeman, Michael Smith, Michelle Lillywhite, Neil and Sarah Adams, Rolf and Pam Beach. I apologize. Sounding out. Okay, thank you. Steve and Stacy Sweet. Tamerlan Job.
I would like to speak, please.
Is this Tamerlan?
Yes.
Okay, give us your address and tell us what you got to say.
I live at 4113 East Hayseed Court in Nampa. My husband and I were absolutely opposed to having the affordable apartment income, low income apartments complex built on the corner of Grays Lane and Amity. Not only are we severely concerned about the increase in crime due to, we've seen what happens when there is low income and what happens with the crime, it tends to increase. But also the decrease in our values of our home, in which this neighborhood, everyone seems to take pride in our neighborhood, and having a 3-story building there again, like everyone else said, is just, it does not fit in this neighborhood. The traffic, I've almost been rear-ended myself several times on Amity, trying to turn in from Amity to Grays Lane. We moved here into this neighborhood because it's a friendly, desirable neighborhood. And we are very worried that the housing values, by putting an affordable low-income housing in, will decrease the value of our houses. And I myself, our backyard is very close to these apartments. So we would be also looking at the 3-story buildings. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Troy and Joanna Keith and Tyler Patrick. Is there anybody else here in chambers that would like to speak? Come on up.
Before I get started, I walked around my neighborhoods because I knew a lot of them wouldn't get their information. And I have 230 names that are against this.
I'll give that to
I would have more, but I'm a nurse and state decided to show up at our facility.
your name and address for the record.
My name is Rebecca Bent. I live at 3614 East Amity Avenue. I am right next door to this development. I'd like to thank you for your time. I am here to explain why I'm against the development of 252 apartments on the corner of Grays Lane and Amity Avenue. Due to the devastating effects it will have on this budding community, that the infrastructure that is in place or could be put in place will cause a detriment to those who already live in the area trying to get on to either Amity or Grays Lane. Such building will take away from the feel of what is already there, which is single-family homes that covers almost 90% of the area, and is the proposed development of the area across the street of the old meat factory. It has, from what I've heard, it's going to be commercial, medium-dense housing, and then on the corner of Amity and Happy Valley, they're proposing to put apartments, which is a much better place to put them because they're not competing with already established homes to get onto the road. I understand that development is going to happen, but proper development should be our top priority. Spilling out 500 plus vehicles to the corner will not only inhibit traffic out of current subdivisions, increasing frustrations of those living there and accidents. Proposed ideas to help with traffic, like a roundabout, would not work very well because Grays Lane is situated on top of an incline. We are already adding 63 houses on Amity right on the same block that is close to that intersection, which will cause over at least 120 more vehicles onto that road trying to get to and from places. Our resources is having a hard enough time keeping up with the development happening in the area, and I feel that this will break the resources we have in the area, the schools, the fire departments, the police. I feel that property would be much better served in the community to be a city park or stay commercial and offer much needed stores like groceries to help ease traffic going 12th and Garrity and even Karcher, especially with the rumors of the 121 acres that was the old meat factory becoming the medium dense housing and apartments. I feel that that space would be taking away from what we already have there. And they already do have a possible proposed of apartments or on Happy Valley and Amity. And it would detriment my business. I am the wedding venue, and I'm pretty sure that I don't want my people coming and seeing people watching their wedding from up above, nor do I want anything to happen to my animals. And I'm sorry, but teenagers do what teenagers do. They get bored and they cause vandalism. They torture animals, and it's not because they're mean or anything that they're just bored. And a lot of those apartment buildings do house single family with kids. Thank you.
Okay, was there anybody else? Come on up.
Hi, Madam Chair and Commission. Margie Potter, and I put my home address, but I'm really with the Salvation Army, the Community Family Shelter and Resource Center and Social Services at 1412 4th Street South in Nampa. And I'm in favor of the Copper Depot Apartments. First, I want to say that I was raised in affordable housing, and as a young mother, I lived in affordable housing. I've never tortured an animal, I'll tell you that. I want to speak to the working families and the veterans, the seniors, and the single people that we hear from on a daily basis looking for truly affordable housing, not free housing, but affordable housing. Their rents are going up drastically and they call us looking for help. Many families are living with other families and members and friends. They're doubled up and tripled up, and they work right here in Nampa. They're desperate for a place that they can afford. They work here and they want to stay here, and they contribute to Nampa's, to our community. Anyways, that's all I want to really say is that we really need this. We run a queue at the Salvation Army for housing. We get 10 to 20 calls per day easily, to where we had to change our phone system to just dial 1 for housing assistance because people are calling, they need help with their utilities and rent and just looking for a place to live because their rents are going up. And we have about 150 people just sitting on that queue right now that we can't house in affordable housing. There's a minimum amount they have to make, but there's a maximum amount that they can make as well. Like I said, it's not free, but we need affordable housing. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Natalie Sandoval. I live at 1112 East Dewey Avenue in Nampa. So I'm here today. I'm a social worker and I am in favor of Copper Depot. I worked in housing and homelessness for 17 years. And I'm here on the biggest privilege to talk to you about the families that I serve in the Nampa School District. I am the McKinney-Vento Homeless Education Liaison for the Nampa School District. I first want to say that I deeply respect the neighbors that are here and the views that they have. I understand that. And I'm asking for some understanding in some of the stories that I hear every day from the families that I serve in our community. So it's no doubt that homelessness is on the rise in Idaho, rose 4% from 2019 to 2020. I anticipate that will continue to rise. For the Nampa School District, right now, we currently have identified 940 students that are experiencing homelessness. We typically identify around 1,200 a year. I'm sad to say that we are a district that has the highest number of homelessness in the state of Idaho. Another sad component is the percentage of students that make up the largest representation of homelessness are those that are in elementary school. We do have students that are homeless in Columbia High. We have students that are homeless at Park Ridge. And we have students that are homeless at East Valley. It is throughout our community. The families that I serve live in Nampa. They've been here generationally. They work in Nampa and they want to stay in Nampa. I also want to share with you that the students that I serve, experiencing homelessness is an adverse childhood experience. So basically, experiencing homelessness as a young person follows you into adulthood. The students that I deal with on a daily basis are coming to school in the state of toxic stress. They're hungry and they lack sleep. That makes it incredibly hard to focus in school, and they need stable housing to have a good start to their school day and to their life. A lot of my families are in constant transition. We try to keep them in their school. However, sometimes that doesn't happen. For every school change, 3 to 6 months of education can be lost for that student. So again, stable housing is incredibly important. We also know that a student that experiences homelessness is 87% more likely to drop out of school. That impacts our economy. that impacts what sort of citizen we want in our community. And so we can prevent that through stable housing. I'll share with you one story and then I will leave. A lot of the families I serve are not involved in criminal activity. They're good folks trying to do the best thing they can. And yeah, they've run into various issues that have caused these situations, but we are facing a vacancy rate of less than 1%. That is huge. I have one parent that drives for our local school bus company. That parent shared the other day, said, Natalie, I'm taking kids every day home and I can't even provide a home for my kids. And he's working. We called the unit and I was doing my best to advocate, hey, can we get this vet in? He's working, he meets the income that you need. The guy said, I have 300 applicants for this unit. We have fallen off the cliff. The housing crisis is here. I respect the neighbors deeply for their views. I understand, but we have to do something because it's very real and we need housing and we need it desperately for our families and for the kids to be able to make it and have opportunity. So thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to testify? Anybody online? You guys want to talk? Okay.
My name's Wendy Warwick. I live at 403 Buckskin Drive. I know I'm going to repeat everything that has been said, but we understand that I just want to say that we understand that there needs to be housing. We understand that there's development. We understand that, but that traffic right there is such a huge concern. And the two entrances that they have planned for those, which are just not that far from from that intersection that we keep talking about. We understand that we need all of this, but we just want the traffic and the sidewalks to those schools that they're talking about. My kids go to Parkridge, which is down Gray's Lane. And I honestly would probably let them walk to school, but if they walk to school, we would have to come off of Buckskin, cross the street, go down the sidewalks that are in front of the Meadows. It's a subdivision there, but then cross back over to get there's not continuous. And so to see the high school in this, we'd be asking for problems with kids walking down Amity. So just a reiteration that the traffic is a huge portion of why we are against this. And again, I would totally support the commercial aspect of it if that was what was happening. But just some big concerns with the traffic around that area. Thank you.
Keith, you want to come up and
Thank you. I think I got most of the questions here to address, but to the extent I miss anything, please jump in. One of the questions was a quick and easy one. Do we own the property or do we have a purchase option? We have a purchase option. So could well be that you never hear from me again. or we do this again in a month or so in front of council or, whatever the case may be. I do want to point out, and it's in my submittal, that Gray's Lane is a collector street. And Amity is a principal arterial. And Amity is planned to be a 5-lane road, 2 lanes of traffic each direction with a center turn. So that's in a long-range planning document. I don't know if Christy can expand on that or if engineering can, but that is planned and right-of-way has been given for that along our frontage. So that piece, I don't know how far out that is, but it is the intent to eventually be substantially expanded. I do want to note just a little bit about the support for commercial. And again, I'm respectful of the neighbors. I'm not going to say that's disingenuous, but I will say from a planning perspective, you very rarely go from single family to a commercial center. Sometimes you'll go from single family to a neighborhood commercial, but there's usually kind of a medium density or even a multifamily density that's a transitional use. Single family, multifamily, commercial. So it would be somewhat unusual, especially if this did become a grocery store or a major commercial center with restaurants and bars or a dance club or whatever. highly impactful. It would be an unusual use next to a single family neighborhood. School capacity, I wanted to touch on just a bit. We did reach out to the district and understand that there are no current capacity issues at the elementary, middle, or high school level. I don't have any more detail than that, other than had a conversation and an email response indicating no current capacity issues. And I know this may not help that much, but in a community in Colorado, we built on a slightly smaller site, 264 units. Same exact affordable housing type, 3-story buildings. Actually, a couple of portions of the building were 4-story. It was an outright allowed use in that zone, but we still had to get site plan approval by the Planning Commission, and that was appealed to council. We were actually in an HOA with 400 single-family homes that were new within the last 5 years. And then us very foolish, stubborn developers come in and try to build, again, much-needed housing. And there are definitely the same concerns, traffic concerns, other crime, those people as neighbors. And I will commend these neighbors, have been incredibly respectful, haven't heard a lot of those people talk, and that's heartwarming, I will say. That doesn't happen in most places. So I appreciate that. What it boiled down to, once we were built, construction was a challenge. Once we were built, there were 2 main complaints that were sort of ongoing issues. Trash pickup. A garbage truck that's picking up a dumpster and dumping it is a lot louder than a residential trash pickup is. There wasn't a lot we could do about that other than we worked to change the hours of the pickup. And then ironically, the other complaint was our residents, because we advertised and offer a non-smoking property. The single family neighbors across the street have no such restriction. So our folks were mad at us for the single family homeowners and their ability to smoke in their front yard or whatever. So just an interesting twist on how those folks ended up living together for years to come. Those were the main questions and responses I had, but I certainly am available for any of your questions.
Madam Chair, I have a question for you, Keith.
Yes.
Tell me or us, what is the mix of your residents? Are they teenagers? Are they 20-year-olds, 40-year-olds, 70-year-olds?
It's a great question. It's a little bit of everything, honestly. There are a fair amount of single parents with children. There will be a fair amount of single households, just an individual, a single guy working, a single mom, or a single woman working. There will be a lot of families with usually younger children, certainly some teens as well. In a typical copper community of ours, there's about 2.4 to 2.7 residents per apartment unit, to give you some idea of the family mix. I think here, because of our 3-bedroom and 4-bedroom count, it'll probably be a little bit higher. I could see it approaching the 3 people per unit on average.
What do you think the turnover rate would be? Typically.
Yeah, in a typical apartment industry standard, believe it or not, it's about 60% a year of folks that move.
Right.
In affordable housing, it's somewhere between half, it's about 30 to 40% a year typically will move.
Do they move up or down?
Well, we certainly hope up. That's a lot of what we're trying to do, is make sure that our folks can move up.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions?
I have a question. Can you just speak a little bit? I appreciate you trying to provide affordable housing and you guys doing research on your company to build really nice communities. But how is this compatible with the surrounding neighbors?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I think when I first came across the site as available for sale, what I see from an aerial view is a neighborhood absolutely in transition, right? I didn't know at that time that the meat plant was going to be torn down and redeveloped. I didn't know what the plan was south of the freeway. I hadn't yet met Rebecca or understood the wedding venue, but just from looking at aerials, I saw single-family homes going into the west. That was the failed multifamily deal before. From an aerial view, from a developer's perspective, this is an area that is growing. It's changing. It's inevitable. It will change. So that was one of the reasons. And then, frankly, I called Rebecca, had a nice conversation, very amicable, even though we're on completely opposing sides of an issue. Came and met with her in person, and really, my deal at that point, after understanding her business and her neighborhood and her, she promised me she would rally opposition, and she has. It really came down, for me, it came down to not comparing it to the vacant lot that it is today, not comparing it to the underutilized pasture use that it is today. This was annexed 12 years ago with the intent for commercial development. And I've heard a couple of neighbors say that they don't believe that would be more impactful. There's just no way. But it's not me. I'm not the traffic expert. I'm not the engineer. But the experts say that it's highly more impactful from a traffic perspective. And maybe the same compatibility issues would arise. And a neighborhood, whatever, 1,000-person dance club wouldn't be allowed as a commercial use, right? But even if it's restaurants, everyone's favorite use is restaurants, but they generate massive, massive traffic. 2 or 3 times multifamily. And that's typically also at peak hour, PM peak hour traffic. So what really convinced me to not call up the landowner, the seller, and say, never mind, I'm gonna go take my lashes, I'm gonna go fight the good fight and provide housing, was the fact that that development agreement is in place and the fact that it could be by right commercial use. And I guess I should just add, there's a cross section in the submittal, in the CUP submittal, that runs through an area of the site, and it shows what the single family property looks like to the west with our property line, with our building setbacks. And when you see it in that regard, 90 feet is an incredible distance. You think about, even on large lots, your neighbor is usually 30 feet away on the side, maybe 10 or 15 foot side setbacks times 2. So again, we'll do our best. I think we've done close to our best. Maybe there's some additional things we can do to make the site plan more palatable.
Thank you.
Okay. Another question from the applicant? Okay. The developers talk, so we're not going back to public. Daniel, can you address the Amity 5-lane? Pretty please. I did say pretty please.
You can demand if you want, that's fine, I don't care. Madam Chair, Commission, that is correct. Amity is a arterial roadway. The master plan for that would be a 5-lane facility throughout that section. We do not currently have a funded or designated funding year for that construction, but it is the master plan for that. Grays Lane is a collector roadway, so we would anticipate a full 3-lane section through there. The developer, if this project is approved or whatever development happens in there, will be required to in place sidewalk along their frontages of both Grays Lane and Amity. And so that would be installed at that point. Some of the other discussion that's been had regarding the traffic in that area, We have done an initial review on the traffic impact study. I believe we received that. Caleb sent out his comments that Christy referenced yesterday, so it's a more recent submittal, so I haven't had a chance to review it myself. I was looking over it as we were listening to things here. I will say that the traffic generation of a commercial development is significantly larger than residential. I've heard some statements to the contrary. That is not accurate. If you look at the traffic you see out by Marketplace and that area, that kind of gives you the difference in the traffic that you would see. So residential, even apartment residential, the traffic generation from it is significantly lower than a commercial use. Commercial uses can vary, depends on what goes in there. But as a general rule, traffic generation from commercial development is higher than residential. So those are kind of the general comments I had regarding traffic. Any other specific questions?
I think that's it.
Sure.
Thank you. I would entertain a motion to close public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
So motion by Brett, second by Adam. He beat you.
Okay.
All those in favor of closing public hearing?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, public hearing is closed. It's a tricky one.
Here, I got a few comments I'd like to make. This was annexed in 2010, is that right? In the business. So the Buckskin or Buckhorn subdivision, the Meadows were both in long before that. So the public at that time was evidently okay with it being that. We now have another subdivision just to the west. It's about 70 homes. These are all, Buckskin is all half acre, bigger lots. The Meadows is all RS6, decent sized lots, and the new one going in is decent size. It just, to me, it's not compatible with everything that's going to be on three sides of it. It doesn't fit in the neighborhood. I have a hard time giving it a initial use permit to change it from what the neighborhood agreed to back 11 years ago. To allowing this to go in. You look at it from an aerial view and you just got nothing but single family homes, single and two-story homes, and that's basically going to be on three sides of it other than the wedding venue. And it just does not fit in the surrounding. It just is not compatible. I just don't see it fitting at all in there, whether it be two-story, three-story, or what. It just, multifamily just does not fit in that neighborhood to me.
Madam Chair, this is Jeff.
Yes.
I agree. I have some concerns with this, and I'm looking at the criteria for these CUPs that we need to consider when entertaining one of these requests. I'm looking at the criteria A, and I agree, it's going to adversely affect the livability and the surrounding properties and the neighborhoods that are in that area. This is, when you're looking at the scale and the bulk of this project in an area where there's single family homes, it's just not compatible. I cannot see any compatibility in this project with the surrounding area. Down the road, maybe down Amity, closer to Happy Valley, I do believe that would be more suitable for a project like this because there aren't that many surrounding properties and neighborhoods, or even further out. One of the other things that I was looking at in this, in the regulations, these conclusions of law that we need to consider, is the impact to like the public facilities. And when I see public facilities, I'm thinking of not just buildings, but I'm also looking at the roads and the infrastructure that's there and the generation of the traffic. And even if it's a commercial, this is something that we would still consider also if we needed to, is the generation of traffic. And you look in C of the CUP in that Nampa City Code, it talks about enhance the successful operation of the surrounding area in its basic community functions. So I'm looking at that basic community functions, and basic community functions in this particular situation means safety. And you have increased traffic, you have kids walking up and down Grays Lane, you have kids going to Columbia High School, you've got Kings Road and that whole mess and everything going on there. It's my opinion that we do have to consider the basic community function of safety. I do not think that the road infrastructure is to a point that will support this bulk and this size of a project in that area. And I know that sometimes we got to have growth in order to have the roads come in after the growth, and I get all that. But in this particular situation, I'm opposed to it. And I would ask that my commissioners, that my fellow commissioners look at those considerations also.
Yes.
Tom and Jeff, we have sat here and listened to people propose affordable housing, and we get the same argument every time. They don't want it because it's not compatible with the current housing. It's true, it's not compatible. It's never going to be compatible. No matter where you want to put this, unless you go out into the desert someplace, it's not going to be compatible. Nobody's going to like it. But we have a problem with not having affordable housing, and it's getting worse. In my house, I can't tell you, I don't want to tell you how much it's gone up in value since I moved into it. I'd be embarrassed to tell you how much money I have in my house now. And these people need a start. This is a good place for them to start. And they can get into a house and be lucky like I am and afford it.
Well, Commissioner Kehoe, with all due respect, I don't think this is a question really of affordable housing. There's no one that's denying that we need affordable housing in this community.
Where would you suggest we put it?
But we have to, my opinion is that we have to base our considerations of this CUP on the facts and the law that's here. It's not just we need more affordable housing, so here's somebody that proposes it in this spot. We have to look to see if this spot is compatible. It has nothing to do with affordable housing. And I'm not convinced that a project like this is going to increase crime either. That it could be, but that's not even that's not a consideration that I'm looking at. I just don't think the bulk and the scale of this project is not compatible for this area to include the public safety and the traffic and all that kind of stuff that we need to consider. We do need more affordable housing. And I know that there are other places. I mean, down the road, there could be a place to put a more affordable housing that would be a better place to put a project of this bulk and this scale, but not in this location.
Okay, well, tell Mr. James, would you approve this application if it had one-story buildings and not as many buildings, or maybe as many buildings, but just one-story buildings instead of three-story? Would that be more acceptable to you?
Yeah, because that would speak to this bulk and the scale and the size of the project. Yeah, it would be considerably less, and I'd be more apropos to looking at something like that.
Commissioner Kehoe, with all due respect, I never once brought up the fact of anything about it being affordable housing. My point was it's an apartment building that's going to be basically surrounded on three sides by single family residents, that it just does not fit. And with Jeff, it's not a safe area for kids to be walking in, and you're going to have how many kids, whether it's single level, 3 levels, walking down Amity trying to get to the high school to go through the baseball park and that side of and Amity is not a road to be walking on, riding a bicycle on. There's too much traffic and there's too many people going to get killed or hurt on this road if you put this in there. And it doesn't fit with the surrounding area, and it's not in harmony with what is already there. Like I say, in 2010, when the residents that were already living there, which all the houses pretty much that are there now were there, approved what they approved. This is not anything that in line with what they approved back then, and I don't think it fits in the neighborhood with what's already there, and the safety issue is definitely a big one.
And one more comment on this. I believe that, I definitely appreciate all of the public comment and the 200 and some odd signatures or whatever that was presented to the commission also. And definitely I take that into consideration. I really do, because, this is their area. This is where they live. This is why we have these public hearings. And so I really do appreciate the public testifying, whether for or against this. But obviously there was the opposition to this project by the public. The affected public is so much more than those that are for it. And that weighs very heavily with me.
I think I'd feel better about this even if it was just directly across Amity. I mean, right across the street, even though we still have traffic and safety concerns with it being surrounded by single family. I just don't think it fits, especially with the apartment 3-story thing. I totally agree we need more affordable housing, but I think there's a lot of other places to put it, not in the middle of a single family.
What is going in at the,
What's that?
what is going in with the rendering plan was?
I don't know.
Rumors.
Apparently you might get the commissioner's approval if you go across the street.
Just chime in a little. I mean, I actually don't, I agree with the developer that this would be a good transition from single family to multifamily. Take everything aside, I think if Amity was built out and the infrastructure is ready to support the project, then all day long. And
yeah,
I say that coming from a development industry that, development does pay for infrastructure growth. It's a little disconcerting, puts us in a bad position when we hear from engineering that, yeah, we have a really big problem here and we have no way to solve it right now. So, not blaming anybody, not blaming you guys. You guys work hard and pinch every dollar and try to use it. You do use it as wisely as you can, but, and I don't know what the answer is. That's for our elected officials to decide, right? Just. Oh, I'm sorry. Whoa.
You repeat everything you just said.
So to summarize, agree that it's a good transition as a project from single to multifamily if the infrastructure is ready to take it. And in my opinion, it's not right now. Although I do like the project if it was somewhere in the vicinity that, kids could get to school and from school safely, and it wasn't coming right up onto the hill near the railroad and all that congestion right there, then I would be in support of it, but I just don't see, it's unfortunate because the need is there, just not in this location, from my opinion.
I'm going to actually echo the same thing. I think that I love this project. I hope it lands in Nampa. I don't think it's compatible where it's being asked to be put. Agreeing with Brett, if it were across the street, I would probably approve it. I think Amity has a long ways to go, but if we're being told that it can support it, then I can trust that. But at the same time, where it's being requested, I wouldn't support. And just to move this along, I'll go ahead and make the motion that we deny the conditional use permit for multifamily housing in a community business species zone and 11.87 acres portion of a 12.56 acre parcel addressed at 609 South Grays Lane for 252 dwelling units in the Copper Depot apartments with a gross dwelling unit of 20.6 and a net density of 23.21, as the project fails to comply with the compatibility of the surrounding area.
Second.
Okay, motion by Adam, second by Tom to deny the CUP. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. All right. guys
This
don't have-
Madam Chair, my apologies. This CUP can be appealed to City Council if that's what the applicant chooses to do.
Yes, he has 14 days.
Okay.
Okay, and if you guys don't want to sit here for the rest of the meeting, now is the time to run.
Sorry.
You're running with the bulls. Okay. Do we have Danny here?
Yes.
Hello,
Hello.
Jesse Christensen, Hiko Engineers, phone number address 2151 West Willow Point, Nampa, Idaho. I'm here to talk about Danny's project. Sunflower Court subdivision. I think we're gonna have a graphic. Maybe. I do not have a large presentation full of lots of words and pretty stuff, but it is an infill subdivision. Sooner or later. There we are. That one works, or that one. Yes, that we can start with that one and go to the other one if I have anything. It's an infill subdivision here in Nampa off of Power Line Road. Ish. Well, not Power Line. South side. Sorry, I get lost in Nampa, even though I live in Nampa. Off South Side Road, it is just north of the Sunshine subdivision. Danny's project will finish the cul-de-sac there on the north end of Sunflower Court. We've actually dubbed it Sunflower Subdivision for now. And with 7 lots coming off of a private road for 4 of the lots. And then the other 3 lots will take access if you want to, the other one would be fine. Yep, the other 3 lots will take access off of the cul-de-sac directly. One is a flag lot, lot 2 up there. City of Nampa will only allow us 4 lots off the private road. The private road is over the 150 feet, so we have a large fire department turnaround in there that should be okay. The ditch that runs along the west side of the property technically gives access to the property to the west of the Sunflower subdivision. So we've included gravity irrigation for that. We have pressurized irrigation running on both sides of the property that will give pressurized irrigation to all of his lots. Yeah, the whole thing is 2.17 acres, 7 lots, 3.22 dwelling unit acres. I think it's a good use of this property. It's a good use of finishing that cul-de-sac. And I think the demand is there for something like this. This has not been farmed in a long time. I've got in touch with Nampa Meridian Irrigation District for the assessments that they have, and they haven't turned water out of that gate in a very long time. The water master is actually completely unreachable. That is listed for there. They will need a new water master for that one single property that still needs to technically have water fed to it. Danny? I think that pretty much covers the basics. I'm here for questions as we move through this.
Okay. You sit wherever you like.
Outside.
All right, Madam Chair, you can't see me, I don't think, but I'm
No, you're
over
hiding.
here. Rodney Ashby for the record. And the applicant presented a lot of my presentation, so I'll be pretty quick here. So the action requested tonight is the recommendation of approval. It's a recommendation for approval or denial of a short plat for Sunflower Court subdivision located at 0 Southside Boulevard, west of Southside Boulevard and north of Sunflower Drive for 7 single-family lots and 1 common drive. So the comprehensive plan in this area is medium density. You can see that on the screen here, completely surrounded by medium density. The existing zoning is RS6, single-family residential, 6,000 square feet lots. The land use is completely surrounded by residential R6 homes. It's accessed from Sunflower Court. I'm sorry, I didn't progress through the zoning. There's the zoning there. It is accessed from Sunflower Court, so you can see that unfinished cul-de-sac. So they'll basically finish out that cul-de-sac and then have a private drive to access the other 4 lots. And utilities are available to the property. So lot 6, 7, and lot 1 are all accessed off of the cul-de-sac here. There's more than 22 feet here accessing the cul-de-sac, and then the private lane for these other 4 properties. So applicable regulations 1027-4F outlines the conditions of how you would look at this for approval. I've highlighted those. You need to evaluate a proposed plat's design based on city codes and the standards identified in the approved subdivision process and policy manual and the standard construction specification manual. 1081 notifies us that, or lets us know that single-family residential, our single-family residential district is intended for low-density urban single-family residential and compatible uses. So this fits into the RS zone because it's single-family homes. And there is a limit, though, that I wanted to point out here, building height regulations of 2.5 stories or 30 feet in height. There was a question about the 22 feet that I pointed out before accessing the cul-de-sac, but that was simply because the scale on the preliminary plat was incorrect. It should have been a 1:30 instead of a 1:20. So when I measured it out, it just didn't come out to 22 feet, but when we got the correct scale, it was correct. 1086C, minimum property structure and parking front yard setback is 20 feet, and that complies. And the side yard setback is for 5 feet. Correspondence. Full details are in your staff report, so I'm not going to go over that. Here are the Nampa engineering and building concerns or correspondence that we received. And they pointed out those same concerns that I had about the scale. And with the revision, they were okay there. Nampa Police Department. This comment is in your packet. I just wanted to highlight this. We've had a lot of requests for police comments and how much it impacts their ability to serve the city. And in this case, they would request or they would suggest that they would need an additional 0.03 additional officers and 0.01 additional support staff, which would be just over almost $3,800 to support that. And as you can see, the different calls they get for the area. Nampa Fire District also commented, and that's in your staff report. I'm not going to go over everything there, but they are similar in nature. They are requesting additional funding and support staff to serve the new growth in the city. Again, this is very small, so should take that into consideration. We had one person submit comments, and they are Brandy Sniffen at 1407 Sunflower Court asked these questions. What precautions are being taken to ensure their safety? And she was speaking about her 2 children under the age of 5. She also asked, what times will work be starting to not disrupt their sleep and daily routine? I'm assuming that's just construction of the project. The hours of work, according to city code, is 7 to 11. So 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. She was concerned about privacy and asked if a privacy fence was part of the plans for the homes. And then fourth, they were concerned about traffic increases leading to decreased safety for her children. She requested a children at play or a speed limit sign before her home. I contacted the streets department about this, and they said we're not in the business of putting those signs up in the city. And I would defer to engineering if you're willing to give any more information on that if they have questions. So I found that the setbacks, the proposed plat complies with the required setbacks for the RS zoning district. The building height, the application says that the maximum building height should be 40 feet. So this height is not permitted in the RS6 zoning district because of the code I showed you earlier. So that needs to be very clear to the applicant that would not be allowed. Again, the change of scale on the preliminary plat, parking, 2 parking spaces are required, including 1 covered parking space. But that will be reviewed as part of the building permit process. The land use, if it's single family homes, there wasn't a lot of clarity there. I assumed they were single family homes, but that would be a permitted use. If they're duplexes, they would need to get a conditional use permit. And then, as I mentioned, there were those public questions that I would suggest you ask the applicant to respond to most of those. So with the modifications to the scale on the preliminary plat, the building elevation is no higher than 2.5 to 30 feet, 2.5 stories or 30 feet. The approved drainage plan provided to the building department and all conditions outlined in the fire district and the engineering division memos, the subdivision short plat will substantially comply with city codes and subdivision regulations. These are the recommended conditions pulled from those comments or correspondence we received from agency partners. And here's the rest of those. There's quite a few. And placed on the screen, I've given you the potential motions for approval or denial of the project. Now it's stand for questions.
Any questions for Rodney? Okay, let's go to public hearing. I have 2 people. Brandy was one of the people that you just read all her concerns. So we have her listed. And then I have a Randall Moe who wanted to speak. Not here. Is Randall online? Rodney? I can't see you, so I don't know what you're doing over there.
Sorry, I'm looking.
Is he taking a nap?
I did see it.
I don't see his name listed.
Okay.
He stopped by the office? Okay.
Okay, well, he was opposed. That's what it says, so, okay. Is there anybody here who wants to testify on this? Okay, I would entertain the motion to close public hearing.
Second.
Moved by Steve, second by Adam to close public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I'm just going to mention this so it's on the record that Tom has recused himself, so he's not voting. Okay, guys, what do you want to do?
Madam Chair, I'm all for this project, this infill project. I think it's a great little spot to put a few homes and fill that space in. So I will move to approve the subdivision plat short approval of Sunflower Court subdivision in a RS6 zoning district at 0 Southside Boulevard for division into 7 buildable lots, 1 private roadway for a 3.22 gross density for Danny Chervack, representing Zenith Homes, including all conditions of staff and according to the conclusions of law.
Okay, moved by Jeff, second by Steve to approve. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? You guys can go home and go to bed now.
Are you talking to us, Madam Chair?
What was that?
Are you talking to us or those in attendance?
No, we're not done yet.
Hold
on
there.
We got 2 more.
All right, I'm with you.
Okay, Joseph Little. Patiently waiting.
ADHD is kicking in, I'm not gonna lie. Hello, my name is Joseph Little. I live at 801 West Pearsall Street, Nampa, Idaho. We are starting an ammunition.
Can you move the microphone up a little more?
Can
Having
you
a
hear
hard
me
time
better?
hearing you.
Hi, how are you? We're starting an ammunition and firearms company.
Okay.
We've gone through all the steps through the ATF, FBI background checks, so on and so forth, to the Napa Police Department. From my understanding, they're waiting to see what the outcome is for this event. All my neighbors are aware we had a sign in my yard. It's been a pretty good. I've met people that I haven't got to meet before. It's been lovely. They're going to be customers from what I understand. I did hear one negative complaint. It was mainly due to not understanding the scenario in which we're doing this. We will not have an open gallery. We will not have a showroom. We will not do anything like that. You can't just come to my house in our neighborhood and view anything. Everything is done by appointment. Any ammunition we manufacture will be sold to local gun ranges and gun stores. You can have an appointment to come in and get any gunsmithing done or to make a special order. Other than that, that's it. Me and my wife both have full-time jobs. This is just a way to kind of move our life forward. So I'm going to keep it short and sweet. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Sure. So I have a question, yeah. So if somebody is going to order a gun, you're going to ship it to you and then they're going to come pick it up, or do you ship it to them?
Oh, as far as any firearms or anything, 10 to 12 appointments a month. I don't plan on having a lot of traffic. We have a nice, quiet, beautiful neighborhood. I want to keep it so. Firearms are concerned, you come to my home, you drop it off after you make an appointment. And then
That's
you'll
for
make
gunsmithing, right?
Gunsmithing and any firearm builds or anything. Ammunition will not be sold to the public.
Okay.
With my neighbors, perhaps I'll legally be allowed to do it, but other than that, it'll be strictly sold to businesses unless you buy a firearm from me or anything like that, and I have it in stock. You can walk away with it legally, of course. So.
All right.
I just don't understand what's going on. We have had so many of these applications for home gun businesses, and we never used to get any at all. Do you guys know World War III is starting up or something? Or?
Well, with the political scenario and things like that doesn't help. You know, people can't get what they want, which doesn't help either. And things of that nature. I personally would like to just have a shop, but I don't have $500,000 to just make that happen. So people start small, work their way up is the best business plan. I'm not going to put my family in jeopardy because I don't want to live out a dream. So we'll start at home, start small, continue on, and hopefully be out soon.
We've had a lot of these applications for the type of business you went into, and so far we have not heard from anybody that said, God, I wish I never did that. You know, so there's been no break-ins, there's been no robberies, you know, so I think it's a pretty safe business.
Couldn't imagine you want to break into a place that carried that kind of stuff.
Well, you never know. Go on vacation sometime, right? And then you go down to the Planning and Zoning Commission. Your wife's there by herself right now?
Oh, my wife is out of town and she'd be here with us. She works a full-time job.
You see?
I am very, very close with all of my neighbors. There's a couple I haven't met, but we're in good shape.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, Doug.
Madam Commissioners, Madam Chair and Commissioners, Doug Critchfield. So this property is located in can we bring up the screen? Is that, oh, there we go. Thank you. This property is located in a low-density residential area. It's in the comprehensive plan. It's a quarter-acre lot with an RS6 zoning, and it's surrounded by RS6 properties. The public utilities and services are all servicing the site currently. It has access to Pearl Street, West Pearl Street, and the proposed business is within a residential neighborhood. These are pictures of the property, the top pictures from the south looking, or from the north looking south, and from the lower pictures from the south looking to the southwest. No, there are no employees that are allowed to work on the premises, so therefore no parking is required on the property. The 12 to 15 people at the residences mentioned by the applicant would be including delivery drivers for UPS or FedEx for product picked up. There are regulations about home occupations that have come before the commission before. Just as a reminder, these are in Chapter 1 of Title 10, and they have to do with the fact that these should be an inside the home type of a business, and that the concerns that we have here that you're weighing on tonight is the incompatibility or compatibility with the residential living in this area. There are several conditions that are listed in your staff report that are also found in Chapter 1 that have to do with home occupations that would apply to this application this evening. In terms of conditional use permits, the things, again, that the commission needs to be concerned about is the size of the proposal in terms of its impacts to the neighborhood and the operations and the effects that those would have on any adjoining land uses or growth and development of the community as a whole. The uses that are permitted conditionally are weighed by the commission, and it's up to the commission to determine whether the characteristics of any such use shall not be unreasonable or incompatible with the type of uses permitted in the surrounding areas, and for stipulating such conditions as may be reasonable so that the basic purposes of the chapter may be served. The relevant conclusions of the law and findings have to do with, again, with compatibility in the neighborhood, that'll provide a convenient, functional living, working, shopping, or civic environment, or C, that it will enhance the successful operation of the surrounding area and provide an essential service to the community. Whether the commission votes tonight to deny or approve the CUP, the statements cited in this report and conclusions of law should be used and supported by further findings of fact to either justify or deny the request this evening. In terms of agency correspondence, we did hear from the building department about any potential growth having to comply with Title IV of the city code, and also CenturyLink, that if there's any disturbance to their facilities, that they need to submit plans to CenturyLink. And the fire department is also required that the applicant will have to provide the quantities of black powder, smokeless powder, primers, and finished bullets that will be in stock at any one time on the premises. We did have some comments come in from the community. We received 3 emails that are in your staff report expressing opposition, concerns about children in the area, what type of people would this business bring to the area, and traffic concerns. And then we received a letter of support finding nothing detrimental to the neighborhood about the proposed business. We also submitted 2 letters to you on Monday that we received indicating opposition, again, for the same reasons. And the questions were asked, what kind of customer would a gun shop have in a neighborhood? Is it capable of background checks? And where are the customers supposed to park? So those were the letters that we received from the community. The conditions of approval are stated in your staff report. They follow along with the agency comments. And the motion this evening then is in your staff report and also on the screen. I'll be able to take any questions. Thank you.
Any questions for Doug?
Excuse me.
Okay, let's go to public hearing. We have on the sign-up sheet Judy K. She submitted her opposition in writing, which we already talked about. And then we have Larry and Jilliany Hollows, who are in favor, and they submitted a letter. And Nicole Sundstrom, who is opposed and also wrote a letter. So there's nobody on my list that want to testify. Well, yeah, but I mean, there's nobody else there. Okay, so you're on.
Jason Tomats, 3640 South Oxbow Drive. I live in the neighborhood, Madam Chair, council members, for lack of a better term. I do live in the neighborhood, and I am all for Joe extending or bettering his life and starting a business, especially in an economy like now. Instead of relying on the government, he's trying to actually go out and establish himself even more by starting a business. You're going to hear things about traffic and the type of people. I live there. We've got kids. The traffic, you need to worry about the high school kids that are driving through there. As far as the type of people that this would draw, everyone needs a background check to get a weapon. All right. I mean, who are we fooling here? Someone's fear of the people that are going to buy a weapon or anything like that should not stop someone from being able to start their own business. With that said, I've seen his business plan. He's been very open with it. There's more cars parking there for kids visiting other kids than there would be for this. And I believe he will stick to the letter of the law when it comes to running this business. And he fully has my support, as well as a number of other members of the community that maybe just don't want to spend the time to come talk. So
They don't want to be here at 10:30 at night with us?
well,
What?
you know, you'll do that if you believe in the cause and you believe in people bettering their lives. So
Yep.
I'm willing to do it.
Thank
Madam
you.
Chair, thanks.
Anybody else wants to speak?
If nobody else wants to go, I'll go.
Okay.
Well, there's a whole crowd coming up.
I mean, I don't want to
Daniel.
jump in front of anybody.
Daniel, do you want to speak?
Daniel doesn't want to.
Checking.
He's ready to go to bed too.
My name's Casey Sparks. I live at 813 West Pearsall Street, 2 doors down from Joe. Also a board member with our HOA. And a lot of the concerns I hear about everything is all pretty much based on misconception. Just like Jason said, I've seen the business plan. I've actually been part of watching him build it and put it together. Traffic, like he said, you got more worried about the high school kids driving around there and having their friends come over for a barbecue than you're gonna have at his house for traffic or anything like that. Safety concern, we had some of that come up with the HOA. We actually had several people reach out to our board through the property management and voice concerns about, oh, well, who's this gonna bring into the neighborhood? What kind of safety with firearms being like, I mean, he's not building a warehouse in his backyard to store bulk firearms and ammunition. I actually had to get the whole HOA board together. And we reached out to some of the neighbors that were concerned, which oddly enough, some of the neighbors that were concerned are completely on the other side of the neighborhood that just heard guns and panicked, as people do. But when everybody understood what was going on and what he was trying to do, just starting a small home business, I mean, he's not really driving any more traffic than a daycare or an Avon salesman or Premier Jewelry or whatever. Safety wise, with the amount he's keeping around, he's got the facilities to keep them, the cabinets, the airtight containers, the things like that, the dehumidifiers, all the things necessary. Once I projected that to the HOA, they reached out to the neighbors and everybody felt a lot better. And I know all our surrounding neighbors, with the exception of the one, have mostly come over to the house, talked to him, and I've been there for quite a few of the conversations, and most of them in the conversation with, I'm excited to buy ammo from you. In fact, 2 of our board members on the HOA said the same thing. So no, I'm very much in favor of a man getting able to start his own business. I wish I could do that. That's it.
Thank you. Is there anybody online that they all went away?
No,
It's just, yeah.
No, Madam, yeah, I'm still here. I think there's someone online that wanted to speak though.
Yeah, this is Ryan Weeks. Address is 816 West Pearsall.
Yes.
Okay, so I live, I live just down the road from Joe. I know it's late, so I'm not going to repeat everything that Jason and Casey already said. I agree with everything they said. I've known him for about 5 years. He's a real stand-up guy, real asset to the community. And I have kids at home. I have no concerns about any impact for, traffic and anything like that. And, I fully support him.
Okay, thank you. I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Almost.
I'm gonna give that one to Tom.
Thanks.
Who's gonna and then Steve second. All those in favor of closing public hearing?
Aye.
Any opposed?
We could use a good guy in my neighborhood. You want to move over, all those accolades from your neighbors,
I have no problem with this. At all. ATF and everybody puts so many regulations that I'm not even,
You're one of the safest neighbors.
yeah, not even worried.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with this either. And looking at the criteria for a conditional use permit, it fits all of those. It's not going to adversely affect the livability of any of the homes there. People have already testified to that. It definitely is going to provide a essential service to the community. So I think it's nothing but a good thing.
Sounded like a motion, Jeff?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, okay. I will make a motion to approve the conditional use permit for gun sales, services, home occupation business for Lucky Shot Ammo in RS6 zoning district at 801 West Pearsall Street in the Raintree Meadows subdivision for Joseph Little with conditions of staff and according to the conclusions of law for the conditional use permit.
Okay, motion by Jeff, second by Steve. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. Yay! You guys get to go.
Copies of that, or how would I go about
Good night. It's like.
Thanks, guys.
Okay.
Coming down.
Okay, so number 7, we don't have an applicant, obviously.
Yeah.
So do we table it?
Madam Chair, I think that this one is kind of so basic that
Can
they
do it.
didn't expect they would need to say much, so I recommend we look at it, and if you're okay with it, we can proceed.
Awesome, let's knock it out.
One less for the next time.
Oh, don't start my timer yet. Okay. So this is a recommend for approval or denial of a zoning map amendment from RP to RML and a short plat subdivision for Mercy Creek number 2. And you have the address there. I think what I'd like to show you is an existing aerial view of the property here. This is the Mercy Creek apartment building. You can see these were developed already. Oh, how come it's not showing?
Must be seeing something we don't see.
There you go.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm gonna have to learn that. Okay, so highlighted in blue, you can see the proposal boundaries here. This is the Mercy Creek apartments there. And as part of those Mercy Creek apartments, these came in as 2 duplexes on a single lot. And all they're proposing to do is divide that into 2 separate lots so that each duplex is on its own lot to be sold separately. And the rezone has to happen because the setback on the sides in the RP zone is 8 feet from the property line. They only have 10 feet between them, so the rezone is necessary. So it's pretty simple. It fits the comp plan. I think kind of makes sense in a lot of ways. There's the outline. So, okay. so I'm going to jump to potential motion.
So Rodney,
Yeah.
this has nothing to do with Mercy Creek Apartments. So it's not part of that, of the Mercy Creek or any of that. These are complete separate,
So,
complete separate lot.
Yeah, Madam Chair and Commissioner Kirkman, what's happened here is that it was a part of the original Mercy Creek subdivision, right? And then you've got this separate parcel all by itself. If you split it again, you have to do a subdivision. So it becomes its own subdivision, but it was originally part of the Mercy Creek development.
Okay.
So we'll open public hearing. Daniel, do you want to testify on this?
Motion to close public hearing.
Second.
Okay, motion by Ron, second by Adam to close public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, public hearing is closed. Somebody read quick.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the short plat zoning map amendment, or I'm sorry, not the short, what am I doing? Zoning map amendment from RP to RML. At 821, 823, 827, and 829 17th Avenue South for Joshua Morrison with all conditions of approval and conclusions of law.
Second.
Okay, motion by Ron, seconded by Brett. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Huh? One more.
Madam Chair, I'll also make the motion to approve the subdivision for short plat of Mercy Creek number 2 subdivision at 821, 823, 827, and 829 17th Avenue South for Joshua Morrison with all conditions.
Second.
Okay, motion by Ron, seconded by Brett again. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay,